Okay, folks. Well, good evening. I'm going to go ahead and call the Temecula City Council meeting to order. Our invocation this evening is Robin McCoy. Are you here this evening? All right. And then if we could, I would like to ask our Mayor Pro Tem to lead us in the flag salute.
First Timothy 2:1-3 say, I urge then first of all, that the petitions and the prayers, intercession, and thanksgiving be made for all people, for kings and all those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in godliness and holiness. For this is good, and it pleases our God, our Savior. So, Father God, first and foremost, we want to pray for our mayor of Temecula, all our council members of Temecula. Father God, we pray as we set agendas, as we set decisions based on what we know about you, let it be pleasing in your sight. Father God, we pray as we move towards race, equality, and inclusive community, that we will remember those that are less fortunate than us, the widow, the orphan, as well as those that are poor. Father God, we pray that when we seek your face and as we come into a place of thanksgiving, we know, Lord God, that this is pure and a faultless religion as we remember others in our city.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you so much. Can we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Councilmember Alexander.
Here.
Councilmember Edwards.
Here.
Mayor Ron.
I am here.
Councilmember Schwank.
I am here.
Councilmember Stewart.
Here. All right, so we are going to start this evening's meeting. A little bit of change compared to what's on the agenda. So before we get into everything else, we're going to start with the redistricting public hearing number 4. And I believe we have our consultants here this evening. Good evening. And let's go ahead and get this started.
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor. Our consultant, Shalise Tilton, is returning for a 4th time, representing NDC to go ahead and facilitate the conduct of the 4th hearing.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members. If it's acceptable with the council, I'm going to go very quickly through the first part. You've seen it now. I think this is your 5th time. So we did have a process that we followed. The Fair Maps Act requires we have 4 public hearings, and we are at the 4th public hearing. 2 of those were held before the council saw maps. You last saw maps on your January 25th meeting. We did open up the process for the public to submit maps. We did receive we received 4 from members of the public. The maps must be adopted by April 17th, according to the statute. The federal law requires we have equal population in each of the districts, so roughly about 22,000 in each of the districts. And then we can't draw lines based solely on race. We must consider other factors such as culture, language spoken at home. We also need to draw maps that would abide with the the Federal Voting Rights Act. The state law, California state law, has the Fair Maps Act that sets forth the criteria we must follow. We've gone over it at every one of our meetings, and that's listed in the center column for you. Each of the maps presented tonight meets that. And then lastly, we can look at other criteria, such as minimizing the amount of voters that would be switched from a 2022 election cycle to a 2024 election cycle. We can also, if we're able to meet all the criteria, look at maps that avoid pairing council members, thereby allowing the voters to choose who has earned re-election, as opposed to a demographer's pen. And then preserving the core of existing districts can be a consideration if the council so chooses. On the screen for you tonight are the existing districts, and we are unable to adopt the existing districts in their present state because we are slightly overpopulated in the first district, District 1, and so we need to distribute so that we have equal population or near equal population. So there's no more than a 10% deviation between the greatest populated district and the least populated district. So when you add those two percentages together, they need to be under 10% for it to be presumptively constitutional. The citizen voting age population is another category that is often looked at to see if it's possible to reach a majority of any of our protected class groups in any single district. And we don't have a high enough concentrated single area to reach a majority of any of the protected class groups, but we have listed for you the highest Latino citizen voting age population, which in most of the maps is around the high 20s. I know that this is small for you to read, and we don't expect you to be able to see all the maps, but this gives a comparison of how the maps look just by colors, and then we have the ability to zoom in very closely to the maps. We can also bring up an interactive review map and look at streets and overlays of the existing districts on the maps if you so desire. Draft A was presented as drawn by NDC, and that map was drawn to show the minimal amount of change, recognizing that the city went through a very deliberative process when it created its districts and respected all of the criteria that were at that time not mandated by the law, but certainly in the city's record as having followed that when it established its districts in prior to the 2018 election. So we did present one map for population balance. This particular, the balance was accomplished in the southern boundary of District 3 and also in the southern boundary of District 2 near the Red Hawk Golf Course. Draft B is similarly a minimum change map for population balance, just accomplished in a different area. And it is accomplished in District 3, the southern boundary moves southerly to follow Portola Road, and in District 2, the southern boundary moves southerly to follow Temecula Creek and include Pachanga Drive. Draft C represents a larger change than the existing districts. This was just drawn with a clean slate and following mostly the HOAs as much as possible, but it turns out that was also done in the first go around and when you did it prior to the 2018 election. So it's just a little bit different configuration for the city council to consider should the council feel that this is a different way to accomplish the criteria listed by the state. Public 101 was a map that, as the name indicates, was submitted by the public. It has two pairings in District 2. When we say pairings, that means that two of the seated council members are in the same district. And I'm sorry, I did not make a notation where the vacant district would be. It's probably, I believe it might be District 1. Also, I do want to point out that the numbering that you see on the maps that are submitted by the public that's the numbering that was as submitted by the member of the public. And should the council choose one of these maps, you certainly have the prerogative to change the way the districts are numbered by the public submitter. We have Public 102A. Also, it has two pairings in what it's identified as its District 1. And Public 102B has two pairings also in its District 1. I want to point out that all of the maps do have, as I mentioned, are within the appropriate deviation. So even at 7.4%, it is still presumptively constitutionally balanced. One other factor that I failed to point out, and it was just called to my attention by looking at this note here, is it's possible also to achieve a majority-minority district, meaning when you add up all of the protected class groups, all the non-white, all the non-white protected class groups, they equal more than 50%. This particular map does not have a district, a majority-minority district, but I believe in most cases the other maps do. And case in fact, District 5 in this Public 103 is the majority-minority district at 54%. Again, here is the snapshot of the maps. All the maps are in printable version, are available on the website, as well as the interactive review map that's available for you to able to zoom into the streets, as I mentioned, also to overlay various maps. You can change the underlying base map to be, for example, the Google satellite image. Similarly, each of the maps is 2 pages that's listed on the website, and each map has a very detailed demographic summary. What you're seeing is just a brief demographic summary to meet the legal requirements, but we do have on the website additional demographics that show things such as language spoken at home, education levels, housing status, various other types of information for each of the districts, for each of the maps. 2 pages of that for you. The proposed sequencing will be the same as it exists today. The law requires that, so districts 1, 3, and 5 would be up for election in 2022, and in 2024, districts 2 and 4. As I mentioned before, the council does have the ability to switch around the numbering on the maps. So you can completely change the entire numbering if you like, or for example, some of the public maps, it may make sense to consider switching some of the numbering just depending on the council's desire. That concludes my formal presentation. The purpose of the public hearing is to get input on the draft maps, and then after discussion, we would ask council to identify a preferred map, and then we'll be going into different action item to take action to introduce an ordinance and a resolution to adopt the full map. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you so much. Any questions from council members? Ms. Edwards?
Are we able in this setting to overlay 2 maps?
I believe we can, if we can go to the website from here, I can bring up the interactive review map and overlay maps.
Only reason I ask is because it's really easy, it's so easy to see the changes if we can, put bottom layer as existing and then overlay on. And I wrote down, you said that it's map B that requires the least amount of disruption to the voters, correct? I mean, it has the slightest bit of movement in it.
I haven't done the analysis on the exact maps. When I was just sitting here, I was just eyeballing it. I believe that draft B does have the least voter deferrals. Drafts A and B are both minimal change,
Okay.
but I believe that B has slightly less.
I was just going to ask if we could overlay at least B and then maybe A also and just do a quick flash back and forth, so give us an idea. I mean, looking at the other maps, it's obvious to see where the changes are, but I think those 2 are very close.
Yeah, so I have it on my screen. I'm not sure that you're able to see, and I'm kind of zooming into where the changes are. I don't think the audience is able to see what I have on my screen here. You may have it on your screen up there.
Not yet.
Oh, he's not that fast?
Close.
He is a magician, actually. Okay, there you go.
So what you're seeing, right now I have, let's start with draft A. So draft A, and you'll see the red lines, that shows the existing, those shows the existing district. So when you look,
Okay.
for example, at the, between districts 3 and districts 2, we're not concerned where district 3 goes into district 2 because those voters would actually, where district 3 picks up some of 2, because those voters would actually be accelerated. The area that would be deferred is in the lower area of district 2,
Okay.
that protrudes, takes up some of District 1. So in District 1, they were expecting to vote in 2022. That blue area would pick up voters, placing them in a 2024 election.
Okay, so it's only those two little chunks?
Yes,
That
but I
leave
think
that,
it's even
okay.
less in Draft B, as you indicated.
Okay,
So draft B, the blue protrusion into District 1 is just in that corner over by I-5.
okay. And then District 3 drops down to follow D Portola Road, it looks like. Okay. And isn't that the goal, is to follow the main arterials if you can?
Yes, that's one of the
Okay,
criteria.
okay, thank you, that makes it a lot easier to see.
And if you want to. No. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you. I think we are then cleared to open the public hearing. So, do we have any public comments?
So actually, Mr. Mayor, all of our comments are, we have 1 in-person and 9 emails, and they're all for item number 17.
Okay.
So I know you were going to be moving that up right after this, so if you would like to close the public hearing.
Really? Nobody wants to? Okay. Closing the public hearing, and any other council comments here?
Are you ready for
Well, I think we
summarizing and?
Yeah, so
summarize and
if
move
you-
on to what our
If you want to go
preference
ahead
is.
and bring up 18.
So let's go ahead and then move on to item number 18, which is adopt a resolution and introduce ordinance adjusting boundaries of council districts based on the 22 Centennial Census and amending municipal code, section 2.08.015.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll give a very brief staff report. The consultant just went through that. And at this point, we have conducted all 4 of the public hearings. So the city of Temecula transitioned from at-large elections to by-district elections in 2017. Every 10 years, local governments use new census data to redraw their district lines to reflect how local populations have changed. Assembly Bill 849 in 2019 and Assembly Bill 1276 in 2020 require cities and counties to engage communities in the redistricting process by holding public hearings and doing public outreach. In Temecula, as Ms. Tilton said, the city council is responsible for drawing those council districts and the redistricting lines, and this process must be completed by April 17th. In accordance with Elections Code Section 21607 and 21607.1, the City Council held public hearings on the drawing of district boundaries on August 24th, 2021, September 28th, 2021, January 25th, 2022, and earlier, March 8th, 2022. At each of the foregoing hearings, the public was invited to provide input on the composition of the new council district boundaries. Additionally, the city sought the input of the public at the city's commission meetings held on July 8th, 2021, July 12th, 2021, August 18th, 2021, and August 26th, 2021. Print and social media was also used to conduct outreach to residents. The proposed maps of the district boundaries were published on January 19th, 2022 on the city's redistricting webpage at temeculaca.gov/redistricting. And at this time, we would actually ask the City Council to go ahead and take the following actions with respect to adopting new district boundaries for the City of Temecula. 1, we would go ahead and ask that the city adopt the relevant resolution that is provided in the agenda packet once they have selected a map, and then also introduce an ordinance that outlines the same. Before you do so, we're happy to answer any questions. And then, like I said, I have one in-person comment from David Maddox and 9 email comments.
I think we have one more.
Okay, so
All
you wanna
right.
come on up?
Well, we'll start with the council. Any questions still? No? Not seeing any. Okay, well then, let us go ahead and take public comment, please.
Yes, the first speaker is David Maddox, to be followed by Matthew Capello.
Mr. Maddox, always a pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, good evening to you all. I'd like to take my commissioner hat off for just a moment here and speak to you as another dude from Red Hawk. I think Ms. Tilton provided a very thorough, even-handed review of all the maps, but I wanted to tell you in my own words what my motivation was behind the Public 102 maps, and specifically 102A. I was a little bit indecisive at the time that I submitted them, but I think in light of some of the demographics that came out of the demographer's analysis, I am supporting 102A. And the goal was simply to bring the Red Hawk and Vail Ranch neighborhoods together into a single district, to the extent that that's possible. I view them really as a single community of interest. We share a lot of the same parks. We send our kids to the same schools. We do most of our day-to-day shopping at the same commercial centers. On a related note, the Vail headquarters has in recent years become a sort of renewed cultural touchstone for that particular enclave in Temecula. And I think for all these reasons, they really belong together. Of course, I recognize that if you do that, there are ripple effects and other downsides elsewhere in the map. I tried to contain those to districts 1 and 2, while leaving the other ones as unchanged as possible. To a certain extent, I don't think any of the maps are fully satisfying. They all have some challenges in common. One of the big ones is that, and this may not be obvious to people watching at home, but we're not allowed to draw the lines just freehand. We're bound to the underlying census blocks. And they have some maddeningly irregular shapes to them that make it hard to make a map that makes much sense. And when you combine that with some of the constraints around the allowable population deviation between districts, it really ties your hands. And it is, I would say, impossible to draw a map that perfectly and neatly follows all of our major arterial roads, although we might like to. One of the other challenges is that the population south of Temecula Parkway is too large to contain in a single district, so we have to divide it up somewhere. Public 102A attempts to answer that challenge by dividing Wolf Creek according to a specific plan phasing, putting phases 3 and 4 in District 1. There's also the issue that whenever district lines change, some households are going to find themselves in a new district. And in the short term, that effectively dilutes the voting power of some people and magnifies that of others. But at the same time, I think if we move the lines in a way that mends community of interest, then in the long term, that makes all of our votes stronger. And then lastly, and most unfortunately, I believe all the public maps do create a council member pairing. And in my case, I couldn't find a way to avoid that, given that the objective was to merge Red Hawk and Vail Ranch. So there are some serious short-term shortcomings that I recognize, but also the map that you choose tonight is going to be good for 10 years. And I think that affords us an opportunity to remedy some of the path-dependent downsides that come along with maybe sticking too close to the current map. In a sense, that's because it increasingly we find District 2 is less contiguous and less compact. I think as District 3 extends downward to include more of Paloma del Sol, Paseo del Sol, Crown Hill, And so that's kind of a long-term issue. I'll just conclude my comments by noting that I think no matter what map you choose tonight, it's going to be okay. Our community has a lot of voices, but I believe ultimately we are still one Temecula. So thank you for hearing me out, and good luck with your deliberation.
Thank you. Next.
And the next in-person speaker is Matthew Capello.
Good evening, Matthew. That's a name I can remember.
Hi, good evening, everybody. How y'all doing? My name is Matthew Cappiello. I'm a physician in the community. I grew up in the Inland Empire. I grew up in Temecula for literally decades of my life. I know many people here. This is very odd. I am coming as a request from former city council candidate Martha Howard, the president of the Latina Association of Riverside County. Herself and members of the Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund had submitted a draft map, both 103A as well as 103B. In particular, they had felt that that map includes a citizens' voting age population that ensured majority-minority protections and adequate representation and seat at the table for certain working-class districts in Temecula, specifically working-class service and retail sectors that work at the wineries, that work at the casinos. Rather than speak in the abstract, speaking in numbers, speaking in colors, speaking in shapes, I think it's important to remember that there are parts of Temecula that are divided. There are suburban versus rural divides. There are middle income and lower income divides. There are divisions of race and class. I myself do not have quantitative or subject matter expertise in every single map that had been presented tonight, but some of the maps that had been listed had various characteristics that bothered me. Draft map C, for instance, had been drafted on the basis of homeowner associations, and we all know that low-income communities don't really have the resources to be able to have powerful or influential homeowner associations, so as a result, it might be more difficult for them to get a seat at the table. In addition, some of the maps that I'm seeing, and this is in no way a criticism of some of the other submissions. In fact, some of the individuals who had submitted other maps I know from years ago. That was a surprise. But some of the maps that I'm seeing submitted radically bisect the demographics and the addresses that we had seen in previous District 5 geographies. And I worry what that would mean in terms of minority communities, Latino communities, African American communities, working class communities, low income communities, really having the ability to have a voice at the fancy and golden seats that we see in front of us. So because of that, both myself, former city council candidate Martha Howard, and some of her colleagues from the Latina Association of Riverside County are requesting consideration for maps 103A and 103B. Again, I'm not particularly biased in this matter. There are multiple maps to consider on the table here, but I do get worried in particular about draft map C, as well as certain aspects of map 102A and 102B. Thank you very much, and nice seeing you all.
Great,
Hi,
thank
Stu.
you.
Thank you.
All right, can we have the emailed comments, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Actually, the first email is from Martha Howard, and she writes, I'm supporting the adoption of Public Map 103 for the following enumerating reasons. This map will keep communities of interest together. Yes, a population that shares socioeconomic similarities. The residents work, live, and shop in our city. Public Map 103 will not split the working force that serves at the grocery stores, food, and entertainment industries such as wineries and casinos. Public Map 103 includes in District 5 a 54% majority-minority citizens voting age population that will improve their opportunity to select representatives of their choice, thus complying with the Voting Rights Act. Of equal importance, Latino population, CVAP, citizen voting age population, meets deviation within 10% for a continuous greater than 50% protected minority. In contrast, I'm strongly opposing the adoption of Map C, Map Public 102A, and Map Public 102B, because any variation of these maps will dilute Latino majority minority vote. If the council adopts any of these maps, it will be a clear violation of the Voting Rights Act and will omit compliance with citizen voting age population mandates. In addition, populations with socioeconomic and geographically interest will be divided. Their opportunity to select a representative of similar interest will be hindered. Most importantly, I want the council to have a clear understanding of our regional populations and that we are one for all and all for one, because our newly drawn Legislative Senate District 32, what happens in Temecula is of great importance to preserve our communities together. The next speaker is Allison Donahue-Bakes. Please share my letter of support of Public Map 103 with the City Council at the March 8th meeting. Public Map 103 will keep communities of interest together. The other maps appear to split this group, separating the population of Temecula, sharing similar socioeconomic status. Public Map 103 complies with the citizen voting age population of 52.66%, specifically in District 5. I strongly oppose Public Map C, 102A, and 102B, because these maps appear to dilute the Latino vote. We must ensure that communities have a fair avenue to select a city council member that represents them and their interests. The next speaker is Laurel Lamont.
Can I ask, Stu made a good point. Can we put the group of maps back up on the screen
yes.
so we just have a reference?
There you go.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Laurel Lamont. I'm supporting the adoption of Public Map 103 for all the reasons Martha Howard expresses. Martha Howard is a dedicated and loyal community member. She fights incredibly hard for the underrepresented within Temecula. The homework and research dedicated to creating this map was done with considerable understanding to the residents that may feel uncomfortable speaking up for themselves. As someone who has fought hard to be seen and heard, as someone who continues to fight for attainable home ownership for the workforce of this community, I align with Martha's research and I proudly support Map 103. The ultimate intention is to strengthen the community as a whole, not in parts. The next speaker is Maribel Nunes. My name is Maribel Nunes, work in the city of Temecula and part of the Brown and Black Redistricting Alliance, and been working with Latina Association of Riverside County, Temecula residents, and getting consultation from Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund, MALDEF. I'm supporting the adoption of Public Map 3 for the following reasons. This map will keep communities of interest together. Yes, a population that shares socioeconomic similarities. The residents work, live, and shop in our cities. Public Map 103 will not split the workforce that serves at grocery stores, food, and entertainment industries such as wineries and casinos. Public Map 103 complies with the citizen voting age population of 52.66%, specifically in District 5, where the majority minority will have the opportunity to select a representative of its choice, thus complying with the Voting Rights Act. Of equal importance, Latino population CVAP meets deviation within 10% for a continuous greater than 50% protected minority. I do not support the other proposed draft maps such as Map C, Public Map 102A, and Map Public 102B, because any variation of these maps will dilute Latino majority minority vote. If the council adopts any of these maps, it will be a clear violation of the Voting Rights Act and will omit compliance with citizens' voting age population mandates. In addition, populations with socioeconomic and geographically interests will be divided. Their opportunity to select a representative of similar interests will be hindered. The next speaker is Ira Robinson. As you know, the federal and state voting rights laws were adopted primarily to enhance the ability of protected class members to effectively vote for candidates and issues of their choice. In connection with item 18 on tonight's agenda, it is my belief that Public Map 103 should be adopted by the council. Public Map 103 is clearly the best of the available choices because it includes the District 5, which has the highest percentage of citizen voting age persons who are protected class members. Public Map 103 also fully complies with the statutory requirements that districts be substantially equal in population, be geographically contiguous, be respectful of communities of interest, have easily identifiable boundaries, and be geographically compact. Public Map 103 also avoids conflict by refraining from assigning any incumbent member of the council to a district in which another member is serving. It is also my belief that the Draft A and Draft B maps are marginal at best. In addition, the maps designated Draft C and Public 102B should definitely not be considered for adoption, primarily because they fail to provide for protected class members in the manner and to the extent contemplated by state and federal law. In summary, it is my recommendation and request that the council adopt Public Map 103. The next speaker is Kathy Sizemore. As a resident of District 3, particularly the Paseo del Sol neighborhood, I prefer Draft Map B. Draft B keeps the Paseo del Sol neighborhood north of DePortola Road together as opposed to Draft A and Draft C. I am not in favor of Draft C as it removes the Crown Hill neighborhood east of Butterfield Stage Road and north of DePortola Road. This section of Crown Hill has similar interests as the rest of District 3 and shares most of the same TBUSD schools. The next speaker is Tammy Sims. I would like to share my thoughts and concerns as a member of Temecula for over 34 years concerning the current maps for Temecula's redistricting. I was hoping that more community input would have been possible in this process, but that it is too late for that now. I hope we can choose the best map that is currently available. I support the adoption of Public Map 103. I believe it is the best option from the available choices and should be adopted by the City Council. Public Map 103 complies with CVAP, Citizen Voting Age Population, and also the Voting Rights Act. This is important because it includes District 5, which has the highest percentage of CVAP persons who are protected class members. Public Map 103 will keep communities of interest together. Communities of interest include residents who share the same socioeconomic backgrounds. For example, residents who live, work, shop, and whose children share the same school districts and surrounding entertainment, etc. It is important not to divide this community of interest, but to allow it to grow together. In looking at maps Draft A, Draft B, Draft C, and Public Map 102B, they fail to provide for protected class members as required by state and federal law and should not be considered. These maps, if adopted, would divide these groups that make up a community of interest and would not allow them to choose a representative who would look out for their common interest. In closing, I hope you will accept my recommendation for adopting Public Map 103. I thank you for the opportunity to have my voice heard, and thank you for your time. The next speaker is Devin Bishop. My name is Devin Bishop. I am a resident of Temecula, and I work as a banker in the community. I'm supporting the adoption of Public Map 103 for the following reasons. Public Map 103 ensures that working class members of the community are not spread out among the districts so as to diminish their voting power. Members of similar socioeconomic backgrounds will be kept together and can better exercise their democratic will rather than being marginalized within less concentrated districts. I do not support the other proposed maps and believe that Public Map 103 will be an improvement from the current district map. The other maps proposed, such as Public Maps 102A and 102B, as well as Map C, will separate Latino constituents and make it harder for their interests to be represented democratically. And the last speaker is Janet Bernabe. Good evening. My name is Janet Bernabe, the Organizing Director for the Center of Community Action and Environmental Justice, CCAEJ. I tend to oversee Riverside and San Bernardino County, which we are a part of the Brown and Black Redistricting Alliance and have been working with Latina Association of Riverside County, Temecula residents, and getting consultation from Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund, MALDEF. I'm supporting the adoption of Public Map 3 for the following reasons. This map will keep communities of interest together. Yes, a population that shares socioeconomic similarities. The residents work, live, and shop in our city. Public Map 103 will not split the working force that serves at the grocery stores, food, and entertainment industries such as wineries and casinos. Public Map 103 complies with the citizen voting age population of 52.66%, specifically in District 5. A majority-minority will have the opportunity to select a representative of its choice, thus complying with the Voting Rights Act. Of equal importance, Latino population CVAP meets deviation within 10% for a continuous greater than 50% of protected minority. I do not support the other proposed draft maps such as Map C, Map Public 102A, and Map Public 102B, because any variation of these maps will dilute Latino majority-minority vote. If the council adopts any of these maps, it will be a clear violation of the Voting Rights Act and will omit compliance with citizen voting age population mandates. In addition, populations with socioeconomic and geographically interests will be divided. Their opportunity to select a representative of similar interest will also be hindered. Mr. Mayor, that concludes all of the public comment in person and via email.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, well, we've heard all the public comments, we've seen the maps. Now it's time to have a discussion. Who would like to volunteer?
Well, I have a question.
I
but
do have a
go
question
ahead.
as well.
Go ahead,
Mr.
Zach.
Schwank.
There was a couple comments in one specifically mentioned drafts A, B, and C and Public Map 102 that would fail to provide for protected class members as required by state and federal law and should not be considered. Can we speak to that?
Could I ask you to repeat
Yeah,
the
it's- so
statement?
the public comment stated that three of the maps, actually four, draft A, B, C, and Public Map 102 would fail to provide for protected class members as required by state and federal law. Now, as we've been going through this process, I think we've made sure that all of these maps comply with state and federal law. So I just want to make sure we're getting comments saying that some of our maps are not complying, but want to just really set the record straight.
Yeah, I don't understand that comment. None of the maps are able to achieve a majority of Latino citizen voting age population in any single district. So if they're comparing that, it's not possible, it's not achievable in this jurisdiction to get a majority Latino citizen voting age population district. And when comparing the numbers, they're all very comparable.
Thank
You have to realize with the citizen voting age population category, there's a 2 to 3, possibly 4% margin of error, because they are estimates based on the American Community Survey. They aren't exact counts.
Thank you.
Ms. Edwards?
Actually, that was going to be my question, is how are they making that, that declaration? Not that I disbelieve it, but I don't know, if we don't know exactly where this group of people lives, and it didn't come out in the surveys, then it's hard to consider, what they're saying, because I don't know where this group is supposed to be. I mean, I can take the maps that they've recommended and try and see what common areas those three maps, where they have in common, but I would have to guess as to where that area is.
Yeah, and typically when we're talking about those type of comments, we would look at those demographic summaries, and we could probably bring up that slideshow that shows the summary, and you can see how comparable they are. So I think it's on page 14. There's draft A, B, and C. And so the categories that you want to look at is the citizen voting age population, and you look for the highest district. So for draft A, that's District 5 at 29%, draft B, District 5 at 29%, draft C, District 5 at 27%. And then go to the next slide.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just trying to determine, looking at the maps that they've recommended, where this area is, that they say is being divided by the maps that they don't support.
Yeah, it's not reflected in the statistics.
I know.
They're all very close.
Okay.
So it would have to come from public testimony if they have some intrinsic knowledge about the neighborhoods that
Yeah.
don't match what the statistics are showing.
That's
But
what I
Yeah,
wondered.
short of that public testimony, it'd be difficult to identify.
Okay. Because if they knew and they could give boundary, I'd like to see what that area is, but I couldn't tell from the statistics either. And even looking at the maps, the difference in the maps, it's still, you still really can't tell. But thank you, that answers the question.
I do have another one for you, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor. Okay. It looks like by the maps, map A, B, and 103, and even 101, all have District 5 almost identical. There's just a slight variance. In fact, 101 and 103, District 5 is exactly the same. and there's a slight variance on A and B. So I'm having trouble understanding exactly
Yeah,
how
that's what-
District 5 is better protected in 103 versus the other 3 maps that all have it pretty much exactly the same. And that's what the testimony we were hearing. And I didn't know if you had any clarity on that either.
Yeah, that's my evaluation as well. Draft C is obviously different.
Yeah.
And draft 102B is different.
Yeah. But 101 and 103 are identical. I mean, as far as lines drawn.
Councilmember Stewart, I do believe that there is a slight percentage variance in the Latino citizen voting age population numbers. For example, in the draft map A and B, I think it's, as Ms. Tilton said, in the 29 percentile.
Right.
Versus in map 103, it is 31%. And so that majority-minority, overall majority-minority district percentage is higher in 103, but it's not significantly higher by Latino citizen voting age population.
Right. Okay.
Ken, just for clarity, could you define for folks here and at home watching the concept of the majority-minority district?
So the purpose of the California Voting Rights Act in encouraging cities to move to districts is to improve the voting strength of our protected class groups. So when we're able to draw districts where we increase the number of percentage of those citizens who are 18 years of age and eligible to vote in a single concentrated area, then they have a higher chance of electing their preferred candidate. And so districts would help to accomplish, districts do help accomplish that in the city. When you look at the overall citizen voting age population for Hispanic is 24. So when you had at-large, their strength was basically 24%. So it does increase it slightly, but because you don't have a highly just one single concentrated area, it doesn't give as great an advantage as we see in other jurisdictions.
Okay, but does any one of our districts in any of the maps achieve an overall majority-minority district?
When you combine all of the minorities, yes, most all of the maps do achieve a majority-minority district. And the way to look at it is to look at the citizen voting age population, the non-Hispanic white category, and if you see a category that's under 50%, then you know that it's a majority of your protected class. So we see even map 102B is at 50, and I think I may have stated in the presentation that it didn't reach majority, but that's pretty darn close to having a majority-minority. So, and then I was just reviewing, I think all of the maps achieve a majority of minority.
And is that safe to say that generally that's District 5?
Yes, it is,
Okay. Okay.
in all cases.
And that is all the minority or protected classes combined?
Yes.
It's not just one individual group?
Right, so there is, when you're following the thought logic, does everyone vote similarly? Does everyone within a certain protected class even vote similarly? But so short of a very extensive polarized voting analysis, that's not known.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thanks. All right, so now the enviable position of trying to pick which one we think best represents this process. Who would like to? Mary Ann.
Oh, the reason I had her overlay the current one with maps A and B, because she said they would be the least disruptive to the voting schedules, the change in voting between 2022 and 2024. They would impact the least number of people. And seeing that what we just heard was that there's no that the maps are all balanced as far as majority, minority are very closely balanced. If that weren't the case, I would have concerns. But looking at A and B overlaid with the current one, it seemed like map draft B was the least disruptive. It took one piece of, I'm looking right at it, of District 3 down to D. Portola, and then a little bit of, I think, District 2. Actually, that one didn't even, I don't know that that one even changed District 2. If it did, just a very small portion of it, I see that.
Right.
Over by Capeno Drive off of 79 South, it looks like, or near 79 South. So to me, B seems to be the one that is the least disruptive.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Next, that's okay.
Yes.
All right, so some of the things that I've noticed in here, first off, I just want to thank everybody for the public maps 102, 101, 102A, B, and 103. I know that's probably going to be a lot of work for you guys, but how incredible that you guys actually put your time and effort into that, and so I just appreciate bringing up other ideas. So we've definitely looked at that. I want to let you all know that. Just looking at really in the last year, me walking my district and right before coming here, just like Mary Ann said, less disruptive. For me, I think B is definitely kind of, for me, the way to go, and a couple reasons why. Looking at D. Portola, when walking that district line and stuff, that's a big area between Crown Hill and D. Portola that they really are together. And so I think creating that line of the division of our district is a great spot there. And then also running with District 2, going straight through on Temecula Parkway and just continuing that is a good part. And again, it's least disruptive. It gives my district is very odd shaped, and I think I've realized that since the last year. But overall, it really, I think it just makes the most sense and just has a continuation within the districts altogether. So for me, I agree right alongside with Mary Ann to keep District 2B. Or the district map for B would be the least disruptive, so.
All right. Stu?
Okay, some people talked about having, communities with one city councilman. To me, there's an advantage to having two city councilmen for one community, because if there's an issue with roads, with traffic, with anything, you want two of us going to bat for that. So, and again, we all see the city as one giant city. So we're not looking at it that way, but we are looking at it that way because we really do have to answer to the people who are the voters. And so, it's not bad to have two of us. As far as C, absolutely not. At 103. I think what it does is instead of going north and south like B does, it goes east and west. And that would create a very big disruption in the voters' ability to vote, because a large section of the city now can't vote at all in this next election cycle, because now they're pushed into a completely different election cycle. So I don't like that one just because of that. What I like about B is it has defined lines. So it goes right up Rancho California Road. It really kind of defines the districts by major arterials too.
And neighborhoods too.
Yeah, so again, I like B just for those reasons. And again, yeah, you guys put on a lot of hard work. And, David, with, you're concentrating on your community, so obviously that's going to be your motivation, the way your map was set up. You went in with a preconceived idea where we're kind of looking at an entire city and, how the council has to, deal with the voting populace too. So I'm in favor of B also.
All right. Mr. Schwank?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Been staring at these maps for a while now, and I've got these colors sort of burned into my eyeballs as I think about these things. So I appreciate the demographer and the time and effort put in with staff as well. David and Martha's publicly submitted maps, I really appreciate that. So thank you. I think it's interesting when we see folks draw maps with their interests in mind, right? And I think if we weren't forced into redistricting in 2017 with 2010 data, 2020 would have been the perfect time to start anew, right? Like that, I think that would be the optimal solution. But here we are. So I'll just cut to the chase. For me, it's draft B. It does have the least amount of disruption, and that's the thing that worries me the most. I still talk with folks that don't know what district they're in. They don't know when are they going to vote again. And so some of these maps bother me where it would just throw people for a loop. It really would. It would be too much disruption. So I do think, in that initial redistricting, that little section of Paloma that was kind of carved out, I think there was a lot of contention with that, and that those folks will be happy to be back in sort of in their community. And I think B does that certainly better than A does. So I'm going to support draft B.
Wow. I'm pleasantly surprised we're all landing on the same letter here, because I'm also very supportive of B. Look, I think the process that we had before us was a pretty robust one. I want to start by saying that. I think we did a good job of getting as much information out to the community and having as many workshops and commission meetings. And, this was the first time we went through this with, some of our commissions, including the Ready Commission, who specifically, I think from my perspective and other council members' perspective, this was one of their more important charges when they were created. So it was nice to see the process unfold, and it was nice to see all the folks who were, at least this time around, the technology was a little bit more in our favor for, allowing people to modify the maps and develop their own sense of what works best in Temecula. And David, I'm with you. I like the work that you did, but it is a little bit too disruptive. And from my perspective, I think the continuity from one district to the next, from one election year to the next, is relatively important. And I agree. Zach, you said it. I mean, there are still folks out there that I talk to as well, and I'm sure we all have, that don't even realize that their city went to districts, years ago. So, right? And so, but you know what? I think that also speaks really highly of the fact that when we went through this process originally, as a city council back then, we all said very carefully and very clearly that we weren't going to let the districts dominate the way we run the city and run city council meetings and distribute funds and projects and all of that. And I think we've done an admirable job of not allowing that to derail, really good work for the entire city. So I have to say, it's nice to see us still keeping that mindset even here today in this process. One thing I would say was kind of interesting, some of the comments that focused on housing affordability. Let's be honest, the affordability in housing in California is slightly broken right now, to say the least. And it was kind of a striking assumption to me that lower income housing almost entirely represented just those in the service industry or grocery stores or whatever. And you kept hearing that same discussion over. And yet a couple of meetings ago, I remember asking our consultants to go back a slide when we were talking about our housing element, recognizing that low income housing and its affordability index now represents firefighters, nurses, resident doctors, and even new deputies in the sheriff's department, right? And it was like, so let's be clear that low income housing or multifamily housing or whatever we want to refer to it as does not just represent one type of workforce in this city any longer. It's something structurally we need to address, but that's not going to be addressed by drawing lines on a map, right? That is a much bigger issue. And so, part of what I'm happy to see is that we've been able to create, I think, a set of maps that still kind of helps with the identity integrity of the city of Temecula, but very pleased to see that we all kind of landed on the same map B. So with that said, I'd like to entertain a motion in a second.
Move approval.
Second.
I would do them, two of them, one for the resolution and one for the ordinance, because I have to read the title.
Okay, move approval for that too?
Second.
Mr. City Attorney, would you like to go ahead and read the title of the ordinance? Or are you saying
I was saying take two separate
two
actions.
separate votes? Okay. So the first one here, motion by Councilmember Edwards, second by Councilmember Alexander to go ahead and adopt the resolution
With map B.
with map B. Hold on just a second.
Jeez.
Oh, you're not going to stay and wait for the outcome? This is the most exciting part. Don't leave.
So if it's okay with you, Mayor Ron, while the students are leaving, I'm just going to take a voice vote, if it's okay with you.
Yes, please.
Councilmember Schwank,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander,
Yes.
Councilmember Edwards,
Aye.
Councilmember Stewart,
Aye.
Mayor Ron.
Aye.
Okay, and then the second action is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Temecula adjusting the boundaries of the 5 city council districts and adopting a new official council district map for the City of Temecula based on the results of the 2020 Centennial Census and amending Section 2.08.015 of the Temecula Municipal Code. And again, that is to include map B.
And that also passes unanimously with the motion by Councilmember Edwards and the second by Alexander.
All right. Well, wonderful. That was very exciting. Thank you all for taking the time to walk through that with us. All right, so let's go back to the very beginning of our agenda this evening, and we will go ahead and start with presentations. Presentation tonight is for National Women's History Month Proclamation, and I believe that we have Women in STEM Club from Chaparral High School here. Are you still here, I hope? All right, well, come on down, and we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about this resolution. So, I'll read the resolution. It says, City of Temecula Proclamation, whereas National Women's History Month celebrates the legacy of trailblazing women and girls who have built, shaped, and improved upon our city, state, and nation, and whereas women of every age, race, religion, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to growth and strength of Temecula in countless recorded and unrecorded ways, and whereas whether serving in elected positions, leading groundbreaking civil rights movements, venturing into unknown frontiers, or programming revolutionary technologies, generations of women shared new ideas and opened new doors, having a profound and positive impact in our community. And whereas women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist, emancipation, industrial labor, civil rights, and peace movements, which have created a fair and just society for all. And whereas despite their contributions, the role of women in history has been consistently overlooked and undervalued in literature, leadership, teaching, and study of American history. And whereas women play a critical economic, cultural, and social role in every sphere of life in Temecula. And now therefore, I, Matt Ron, on behalf of the City Council of the City of Temecula, hereby proclaim this month of March 2022 to be National Women's History Month. So please join us at the podium, and Councilmember Schwank will bring the proclamations down.
And Mr. Mayor, I believe we had 3 students, but whoever we have would like to speak to the STEM Club, that would be fantastic.
All right.
This one's going to be for you. Carol, there you go. Samantha, there you go. This is yours. Thank you. Congratulations. Thanks for coming.
All right. All right, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and guests. My name is Maribel Nunes, and I am a junior at Chaparral High School. I'm also the founder and president of the Women in STEM Club, also known as WeSTEM, at Chaparral High School. I want to thank the City Council for this proclamation and for supporting our efforts. In 2020, I started this club, a chapter of the National Women in STEM organization, with the help of Mrs. Walker, to encourage women and girls' participation in the STEM field, which consists of science, technology, engineering, and math. Our WeSTEM club currently has about 50 members, and our organization has participated in events such as global research in astronomy through online volunteering and student STEM subject presentations. We provide STEM resources and opportunities to members such as summer programs and internships. We've also participated in hackathons through San Marcos and were able to obtain first place. We're proud to have been able to share mentorship opportunities to our members and connect them to one-on-one time with Ivy League students, PhD students, and doctors. Our club meets monthly at the minimum, and we discuss relevant STEM topics, references, opportunities, and other STEM subjects that promote women engagement in STEM. Our club continues to be a supportive environment for women and girls to connect through STEM and increase girls' and women participation in STEM. Our mission is to empower and inspire girls through offering a variety of opportunities, and that through our efforts, not only will there be an increased awareness of women's potential, but also that girls will be able to recognize their own. Our mission has and always will be to empower girls to be a part of the movement to increase female representation in STEM. Again, thank you to our mayor and city council for supporting all of the strong women and girls in our community.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and guests. My name is Carol Bautista Meza, and I am the founder and co-president of Pumas Against Period Poverty. Receiving this proclamation is both an honor and a great milestone for our club's first year running. Pumas Against Period Poverty, or Pumas App for short, is a student-led club which aims to provide free menstrual products for all students who may need them, bring awareness to period poverty, which is defined as the lack of access to menstrual products, menstrual education, and more, and overall reduce the stigma and shame that is often associated with menstrual cycles. Pumas App membership is open to every student on campus, regardless of their gender identity, and they are all given a vital role. We aim to stock the baskets in the restrooms every Friday or whenever we notice that a basket is empty. So far, we have been extremely successful and have gotten nothing but positive feedback from all of our students. Through our club, we have also been successful in highlighting issues in marginalized groups that are most affected by period poverty.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Samantha Roldan, and I'm the co-president of Pumas Against Period Poverty. In our efforts to keep up with our goals, as previously stated, we have also been able to create a healthier and welcoming environment for all students at our school. Rather than feeling shame and having to ask somebody in a whisper for menstrual products, students are now finding it easier to find them by just going up to one of our baskets to grab whatever they may need. In the future, we hope to stock all schools in the district and beyond by creating custom programs for each school that functions with their available budgets. We invite you all to donate and help with our cause at our upcoming menstrual product drive at Chaparral High School. And if you would like any more information, email us at tvusdapp@gmail.com or follow our Instagram for further information at Pumas App. We also wanted to wish a happy Women's in History Month to all the women here, and thank you for everything you do.
Thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you.
Mayor Ron, could I make a comment?
Yes, please. Thank you.
So, ladies, as the mother of twin girls, one is a computer engineer and the other is a very successful small business owner, I want to encourage you, you can do anything you want. The world is at your feet, and it's just one more step toward total world domination.
All right, and I have one quick slide.
Can I add something?
Absolutely.
Just nothing like that.
No? Okay, please.
Ladies, also, just as a suggestion, as a city council member, I don't know if you guys have connected with the Community Mission of Hope. They are very big on being able to get those type of items. So I don't know if that's something you have been aware of or been able to do that, but if you haven't, that'd be a great area that you guys can definitely access to be able to get more products. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. All right, I do have one quick slide. I just wanted to acknowledge that when we talk about Women's History Month, we have two of our own history-making councilwomen here in the city. And I think it's important because, I just read this article this morning, and despite a lot of the strides that have happened over the generations, California's wage disparity is still over 14% between men and women. Washington, D.C. actually has the nation's smallest percentage at 8.1%, but other states range as high as over 30%. And so remarkable strides have been made, and access to education and careers and that support has just been, just amazing transition even in my own lifetime. But there's still a lot left to do and way to go. And, just want to acknowledge this month and thank you all for being here. And again, thank you for representing your high schools so well here this evening too. Thank you.
I'd just like to add that Jessica and I are very thankful that we get the same $600 a month that you all get, so.
That's right. There is no pay disparity there. Absolutely. Thank you. All right. At least we've got it right in Temecula. All right. All right. Let's move on to our board and commission reports. Planning Commission, Mr. Watts, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members and staff and audience. How's everybody doing tonight? Our first slide is yours truly and the rest of the Planning Commission. Next slide, please. At our last meeting last week, we heard from Finance Director Jennifer Hennessy, who briefed us on the city's budget process and asked for input. I'm happy to report that she got a lot of input from all the members, so I hope that you're pleased with some of the responses you get. You probably won't be with some others, but that's the way it goes. You ask. Anyhow, she did a great job, and there was great interaction, so I was pleased with that. Next slide, please. Our other item of business was to approve a modification to a development plan for architectural revisions and public right-of-way improvements. And that is the restaurant right across the street from us here on Mercedes that has been vacant for a while. And that item was approved unanimously. And that summarizes our meeting of last week, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you so much. All right, Mr. Richardson, good evening.
How you doing?
Good.
Good evening, Mayor Ron, council and staff. This is our who we are and what we do slide, and you'll be hearing more from us in our joint meeting with you all shortly. So I'll summarize our items from the February 24th meeting. First, we had our budget engagement session presented by Jennifer Hennessy. A really wonderful session. We appreciate your engagement with our extensive question and answer, but we learned a lot, and it's just amazing the financial health of the city. So always easy to receive and file the good news. Next slide. Let's see. We also elected our chairperson and vice chairperson for the remainder of 2022. I was selected as the chairperson, and Skip, in his absence, he had root canal that day, was elected our vice chair. So yes. So next slide, please. And finally, the local road safety plan was reviewed. I know Commissioner Maddox will be reporting on this in our joint meeting, so I'll leave it at there. We did vote 4-0 to recommend approval of the LRSP to City Council. That concludes our report.
All right, thank you so much. Public Safety Report, Captain Hall, good evening.
Good evening. Quickly, I'll go over the calls for service. These are year-to-date. In 2022, we've had 12,273, and in the month of February, we had 5,969. I presented a next slide, but before we get into that, I sent the council earlier our crime stats, but I just want to go over them real quick to see if there were any questions. I was very happy to receive these crime stats today, which is why I shared them with you. And these are year-to-date, comparing where we are today to where we were the same time in 2011. And you can see that in robberies, we've recognized a 25% decrease in robberies, 11% decrease in assaults, 25% decrease in burglaries, a 37% decrease in auto theft, 3% in thefts overall, arsons and homicides, no change. This represents a total violent crime decrease of 8.2%, total property crime decrease of 12.3%, and a total Part 1 crime, which is all of these crimes together of 11.9% decrease. In the email I sent, I made a mistake and I accidentally sent you the entire Southwest Station overall crime stats. If you noticed, there was very little difference between the city of Temecula and the overall area of responsibility of the Southwest Sheriff Station, which bodes well, right, for us. We enjoy a very symbiotic relationship with the county area, and to see the stats drop in both areas is impressive. Not to mention, in the city of Temecula, now, we don't have some of this in the county, but we have a major freeway, another major freeway that intersects near our city, a global resort, a regional shopping and auto mall, as well as an Old Town district. I would challenge any city in the Southern California area to compete with our decreasing crime stats. And that is directly due to not only the policies that you put in place, but also the hardworking deputy sheriffs that are in the field. So I am very proud to report those decreasing crime stats in a community that already has very low crime stats to begin with. Our violent crime is very low. To see the decrease, I was very happy to see that. Property crime is something we do struggle with a little bit in this community, although not bad compared to some of the surrounding communities. But to see a 25% decrease in burglaries and then a 37% decrease in auto thefts, I was very happy to see. Pleasantly surprised to see that much of a decrease. Which will bring me to the next slide. I wanted you to see this because I wanted to explain something about the flock technology that we put into place. This case here that you're seeing in front of you was not generated from the flock camera. This is a deputy sheriff that was on patrol that stopped a vehicle for an unrelated vehicle code violation. But during their investigation, they found those sawzalls, the blades, the stolen catalytic converters, which you know is something that plagues all of the United States, but certainly our area. What is interesting about this, and I wanted to point out to you, is so this deputy sheriff makes this vehicle stop. They find these people in possession of these stolen catalytic converters and these burglary and theft tools. They then can go into the flock system, go back in time 30 days, and see where else this car has gone, and then reach out to those agencies and say, hey, we've caught these people in possession of these catalytic converters. These crimes may or may not have occurred in your area as well. We can then work with those agencies to do some kind of joint or lateral prosecution, right? And go back and solve crimes that occurred in other jurisdictions, which is good because it helps everybody, try to curtail this. Something else that we can do is these people that you can see in this picture are probably not the ones that are recycling or buying these stolen catalytic converters. Like I believe that they're probably not the ones that are able to refine these precious metals that are in these catalytic converters and do something with it, though that is taking place somewhere else. Using the flock technology, we're able to oftentimes figure out where they're offloading these stolen goods, which ultimately at the end of the day is how we stop this, right? Catching them is not going to stop the theft of all the catalytic converters. However, using this technology, we go to the next level, the old adage of follow the money, right, to where they are actually recycling or buying these stolen products, and we shut that down. If there's no market to offload these catalytic converters, there's no value to them. So I guess to some degree, this is also a PSA for whoever may be listening, that if you are buying these catalytic converters, the next knock on your door may be a deputy sheriff.
Way to go.
So that's, if you have any questions, I just wanted to let you know that the technology is doing more than just helping us solve in-progress crimes, locate missing people, retrieve stolen vehicles. We're also using it to figure out what happened before the crime and then to follow our investigation to who is actually purchasing these things.
Captain Hall, just one point of clarification, I think those stats that you were sharing, that all were trending in the right direction down, were year-to-date from 2021, not 2012, correct?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
2021 compared
Year
to
over year.
now. Yes,
Right.
year to
Thank you.
date. Sorry.
Good news.
Cap, I just want to tell you, thank you. Anytime I get an email from you, I'm a little nervous opening it right away, right? But to see that trend downward is really exciting. So I would just want to say thank you, and please pass on to the team our appreciation for all the hard work the deputies are doing.
Will do, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Wonderful report. Thank you, sir. It's good to see all the numbers trending in the right direction, and nice to get the other updates on how you guys are fighting crime in Temecula. That's a remarkable job you're all doing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so we are going to now convene the annual joint meetings, Temecula City Council, the Public Traffic Safety Commission, and the Ready Commission. So let's go ahead and begin that process, and I believe we have to start with public comment for that?
So actually, we don't have any public comment.
good.
So for the record, we'll go ahead and state that. And as the council knows, once a year, we conduct annual joint meetings between the city council and each of our 5 boards and commissions. And so tonight up, we have in alphabetical order, Public Traffic Safety Commission first. And we'll receive a presentation, and council's welcome to ask any questions and give any general direction they wish, and then we'll go ahead and move on to the Ready Commission.
Perfect. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here again. So tonight I will present for the Public Traffic Safety Commission, which is responsible for dealing with a variety of issues that are related to the city's core values, those being transportation, mobility, and connectivity, a safe and prepared community, a sustainable city, accountable and responsive city government, and a healthy and livable city. And next slide, very good. So the Public Traffic Safety Commission reviews and makes recommendations on all things traffic related, and we're primarily focused on traffic safety and mobility. The commission is charged with reviewing traffic calming issues on residential and arterial roadways, traffic control devices such as traffic signals, stop signs and speed limits, bicycle and pedestrian safety, including school area traffic safety, public safety programs initiated by Temecula Police and Fire Departments, and transportation programs such as capital improvement infrastructure projects. Next. So I will quickly introduce our commissioners. We bring a wealth of complementary knowledge and diverse experience. We have Eric Ackerman, appointed in December, who was a first responder with Murrieta Fire Department. We have Robert Skip Carter, over 10 years on the commission, retired CHP with many years of law enforcement experience. And we have David Maddox, appointed January of 2021. He is our representative on the Quality of Life Master Plan Blue Ribbon Committee. Thank you for that service. I've been on the committee over 8 years, and I bring 30 years of experience as a systems engineer. And we have Brad Sullivan on the commission over 5 years, and he is a prior public traffic safety commissioner in the city of West Hollywood, so he brings that knowledge to us as well. So we have a really good group of folks here serving you. So I will now turn it over to Skip Carter.
Thanks, JR. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm honored to be the vice chair of this commission. However, if you have a choice between getting a root canal or going to a meeting, I've learned to go to the meeting and get the root canal after. The traffic calming program that we've started here in Temecula, really the purpose of the program, as you probably get notified a lot from residents about different issues going on in their neighborhood, we look at it and we're trying to promote the community involvement by proactively addressing these issues and to maintain a safe and friendly environment. Shown on the slide above are just a couple of pictures, but then on the side, La Paz Street runabout, the striping around there, we've done a lot of stuff there. I'm sure the homeowner wants it to be a lot slower because that fence is always being repaired. Pajol Street, First Street, always stop. Yanez Road, horse crossings, North General Kearney Road striping, and then Butterfield Stage striping. all of that and we call it calming, but then JR brought up a term, we call it a road diet or something like that, a traffic diet, because it brings people's eyes to show that there's other stuff going on, like bike lanes and different lanes, and narrows that whole area down. On the next slide, the traffic calming features that we've implemented are also here on Paba Road, the striping, DePortola striping, Yanez. You'll see the Temecula Valley High School, the RRFBs, which I had to look at first because it's a rectangular rapid flashing beacon. It's just a sign that flashes. On Rancho Vista Road at Temecula Valley High School, we installed that, and then as part of Paba Road pavement project, new striping installed, which included bike lanes with buffers, which is the one on the far right.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, and staff. The Commission plays an important role in considering the implementation of traffic control devices such as traffic signal and pedestrian improvements, posting of speed limits, radar feedback signs, armadillo traffic data collection devices, parking restrictions that ensure the safety of Temecula motorists and maintain a safe and family environment. Another important role for the Commission is the implementation of bicycle and pedestrian facilities that ensure a healthy and livable community. The Commission considered buffered bike lanes, high visibility crosswalks, bike sharrows, and countdown pedestrian heads. And now I introduce Commissioner Maddox.
All right, thank you, Brad. Well, Temecula has an impressive slate of engineering programs and activities, not the least of which is the Capital Improvement Program, which could fill a whole night on its own. As you're well aware, the city is making good progress on the additional freeway auxiliary lanes, as well as the French Valley Parkway Interchange Phase 2, where we're just about done with the land acquisition phase. The CIP also includes $7 million worth of pavement maintenance programming, and these projects really are guided by an objective measurement we use called the Pavement Condition Index. So the city is taking good care of our existing roadway network. And then on to the Office of Emergency Management. They've been very busy, as I'm sure you've noticed. They've been organizing numerous training plans and exercises. They've overseen the city's COVID-19 FEMA claim, and they've also put together a wealth of emergency preparedness resources for our community. One service that I'd like to highlight is Temecula Alert, which is a type of reverse 911 system that our residents can opt into on the city website. The Traffic Safety Outreach Program goes hand in hand with our traffic calming efforts. Education is often the first step in improving traffic safety before a traffic calming program advances into the engineering phase. Now, school area traffic circulation is a subject that is very near to me, and I'm happy to report that our commission reviewed and recommended several safety improvements around our schools last year. And these include not only some of the more visible projects, like the flashing beacon in front of TVHS, but also some strategically placed crosswalks and multi-way stop controls several blocks away from schools that help to provide safe routes to school. And now in terms of the local road safety plan and the highway safety improvement program, these are going to require a little bit of a deeper dive. So on the next slide, I would like to first take a closer look at the Lrsp. This is a brand new document. This is a citywide data-driven traffic safety plan. And so basically, city staff has gathered several years worth of data on vehicle, motorcycle, bicycle, pedestrian collisions, where they happen, why they happen, what underlying conditions make those collisions more or less severe. And the idea is that if we want to reduce traffic fatalities and injuries to zero, then we can't just be reactive. And so to that end, the plan identifies patterns and root causes so that we can proactively and systematically deploy countermeasures across the city in the locations where we expect future accidents to be most likely to occur. In looking at the study, what we found is that collisions tend to be more frequent and more severe at our signalized intersections. And so we're recommending a handful of projects to address this particular issue, including pedestrian countdown signal heads with accessible push buttons, new LED safety lighting, and also network communications upgrades to improve signal timing. Now, the good news, as you'll see on our next slide, is that we've got a pretty good head start on these projects. The city has been proactive in procuring grant funding under the Highway Safety Improvement Program. So we currently have 3 active grants totaling $2.6 million, with the city providing a 10% match against 90% federal funding. Under the HSIP, we have fiber optic communications upgrades being installed on Winchester, Rancho California, and Temecula Parkway corridors. That is currently under construction. The pedestrian upgrade project is also under construction, and that's going to improve 41 of our intersections initially, and we plan to add more in future rounds of the grant applications. And then we also have a nearing completion of its design phase, the signal modification project, which will implement protective permissive left turn operations at 5 additional intersections. So we've got some great engineering programs coming up supporting traffic safety in the year of Temecula Safe. And now to talk a little bit more about some of our enforcement activities, I'd like to introduce Commissioner Ackerman.
Hello, Mayor. Sorry about that. Mayor, Council, thank you very much for letting me speak. I will say, as the most junior member on the commission, I'm not going to be able to speak a lot with my personal experience as a commissioner in this. It is growing, but on behalf of the commission, some of the involvement we've had in these programs. So talking about the police programs the commission's been able to consider and provide input on, I'm going to go over them up here, but I would like to point out that all of these programs are extremely proactive, and I think it says a lot to Captain Hall's report about the decrease in crime in the community is the fact that we can take that proactive report because we have such dedicated men and women policing our community. So I'm personally, as a resident, very thankful for that. Our Metro Old Town program helping keeping our visitors and workers in Old Town safe every 15 minutes. As a first responder, I'm very aware of that program, and that's going to help protect our youth as they start to take to the roadway. DUI checkpoints keep everyone on the road safe. Our Community Action Patrol puts volunteers in place to assist our police force. And my favorite acronym that we have, the Stoplight Abuse Program, or SLAP, helps reduce the incursions of red light violations. Going on to the next slide. As we look forward to this year, what we're going to be considering, just what we're anticipating up to this point, we have a lot of traffic signals that we're going to consider. Ring Road, Promenade Mall East, Butterfield Stage and Avenida La Stonac, Rancho California Road and T Drive, those are going to be our traffic signals we consider. As Commissioner Maddox mentioned, our pedestrian signal head upgrades as well as our fiber optics to help with the timing of our stoplights, and then our neighborhood traffic calming programs to help keep our communities safe. And with that, I think JR is coming back.
So final slide, please. So I would like to just take a moment before we close and mention that the local road safety plan we did, the Lrsp, is really an amazing document, and so much work went into it. And I wanted to acknowledge Nick and the public works staff for the great work on that document. It's been a long time in the making, but I think it's really going to guide the work we do going forward to make sure that our commission and then you do the right things for our mobility and safety in the city for traffic. So with that, we'll entertain any questions if there are any.
I have one.
Ms. Edwards.
So Tom and I are DUI checkpoint groupies, and we've been going for, I can't tell you how many years, 20 years or more, probably.
Visitors, not customers.
Correct. Correct. And I would even say admiring observers. It's not only a preventative process to catch people driving under the influence or with issues, with vehicle maintenance or expired tags, but it's a great PR tool, believe it or not. And people very often thank the officers. And I know that we typically run that program through grants. And so what's the status? Where are we right now? Are we still having them? Have we used up the current grant allotment, or do we know?
So I know we used to have far more. I'll let Patrick speak to that, actually.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to turn it over to Captain Hall since he runs those programs.
And I'd have to get back to you on the answer.
Okay.
I don't know.
So that was a hot potato,
That's
but yes.
fine. And you're very nice to notify us anytime that we have a DUI checkpoint, because we do like to go and support the officers.
But I agree. I've been out to a DUI checkpoint. Everybody who serves the city should go have that
Yes.
experience, and mainly to see the dedication and the professionalism of the people who run them for us. So
Yeah.
really, really good to do at least once.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I just want to say real quick that, it's a request of mine several years ago that we start doing this and getting a little bit more interaction with the commissions. It wasn't just important, I think, for the council, but also for the community to see, if they're not going to regular commission meetings, to see what you're all doing. And it's great to have some new faces on the commission, so welcome. Good to see you. And one of the most rousing sentiments I've heard about, our commission meetings is that commission meetings are better than going to have a root canal. I mean, that was really, I'm glad to hear that, right? You would
And it's not
rather
even
come to a
close.
meeting than go to a, so. When we recruit for, board and commission positions, that's definitely going in the next recruitment. So, but seriously though, thank you all for the hard work you did over the last year. Appreciate it.
Really good.
Thank you.
All right, and following in the tradition, next up is our Ready Commission.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, our chair, Denise Wilson, is going to go ahead and lead the Ready Commission in their presentation. And I will say, as your city clerk, I do not have a favorite board or commission. However, as a department director liaison, I may have a preference. So with that, Chair Wilson, we'll go ahead and load the presentation, and it's all yours.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, our staff, and also our guests and our commissions. My name is Denise Wilson, and I'd just like to introduce you to our commissioners. We have Commissioner Adam Eventhal. He's on camera, so we're just going to wave hi to him. He's at home sick. Commissioner Eric Faulkner, Commissioner Ivy Harris, Commissioner Lyman Letters, Commissioner Crystal Pastorian, Commissioner Jackie Steed, and then myself, Chair Wilson. And I'd like to give you the description of what the Ready Commission is, and we like to say the Race, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Commission, also known as Ready. Our goal is to review and to make recommendations on topics of diversity and inclusion within our city, within events, service programs, policies, and enhanced community relations. We meet not every Thursday, but the second Thursday of every month here in Chamber at 6 p.m., and we like to invite you all to come and join us. Last year, our theme was the year of learning, because this was all new to us, and we were so excited, and we still are. We have that energy within us. So let me move on and tell you a little bit more about what we've been doing. In January, thank you. In January of 2021, the city attorney conducted the Brown Act training for the commission, and the commissioners selected the chair and the vice chair. And that was definitely a really good training, because we were all learning something that we did not know. The Brown Act existed. So thank you for that, Randy. And then in February, the city manager's office and finance department presented their overview of the respective departments' functions, the economic development, the budgets, and so on. And then the commission received overview from the city's cultural services and programs and provided recommendations for additional community awareness of the same. Now we're going to have Commissioner, I think Faulkner is first. Who's up first? Yep, that's you in the corner. Go ahead.
I was sitting down because I didn't want to block anybody's vision back there. But we're going to double tap to our women. Happy International Women's Day as well. So you got the month and you got today is your day as well. So I want to start there. So March, we went into human resources and information technology. We had great presentations by Mike and Isaac's team in regards to the great things the city's doing here and getting us up to speed on where we are as a city and how you guys do your work internally. We rolled right into the participating in the budget engagement session where we had get an understanding of how the budget is made here and how we do our work. And then we received a presentation regarding the rebranding of Friendship Park, where we actually had some of our commissioners roll up their sleeves and go out and do the work as well. They weren't actually talking about it, they were out there doing it as well. So we did some stuff with the mural painting, mosaic mural, and bench designs as well. So we had input on that. Next in April, we had briefs from Community Service and Public Works. Pat, your team, and Erica, now your team, did an amazing job coming in and giving us a presentation. Pat, you know how much I love that app. Every time I see you, I tell you about it because I use it all the time to get things done when I see it around the city. So great job with that as well. And just briefs on our seniors and our youth and our transit issue and the street improvement things that are going on around the city. And last but not least, we received an overview and status update on the city's Ready initiative. I'll turn it over to Commissioner Harris.
Let me bend this down a little bit. Hi, City Council. Hi, Mayor. So in May, the Ready Commission received an amazing presentation from the Riverside Sheriff's Office. It was an overview of their departmental functions, that including community policing principles, officer training, and recruitment. It was one meeting that I had with Zach Hall, but I had the opportunity to have another meeting with him. He remains open and available to all community members, to have really important conversations with Temecula police officers about what they do. And I think that makes our city special, so that was really awesome. We received an overview of the Quality of Life Master Plan update and provided recommendations for additional community engagement and input. In June, we discussed the addition of an equity core value to the, let's see if I remember my letters, QLMP, as directed by the council, which we discussed the value statement, what the value statement would look like, and how it would be measured, and what are key indicators. And we provided recommendations on potential language. So thank you. I'll pass it on.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, and staff. I get to report on the activities in July and August. I didn't happen to be here, so I'm reading somebody else's material. But I'm excited to report this because we actually had a follow-up conversation recently about both of these items. In July, the Commission adopted the draft equity core value statement for the Quality of Life Master Plan update. And we got a chance to review that last month. And I just wanted to say from my own experience in working on value statements around equity and justice that I was quite impressed with the work that was done here in Temecula on that particular piece of the Quality of Life Master Plan. We also received a presentation on local redistricting efforts. And then in August, the Commission considered underrepresented segments of the community and made some recommendations to city staff, including considering veterans, single parents, residents below the poverty line. We revisited that discussion last month as well and added some populations to the list for consideration for the city to keep in mind. Lastly, we identified potential barriers to access for city services and programs and provided general recommendations for enhanced communication. And with that, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Pastorian.
Thank you, Lyman. Good evening,
Mayor Ron, and council members. So you can see here on this particular slide that in September, we were very busy and we're really excited as the fruits of this particular label are coming to fruition here. But we received an update regarding the city's workforce development programs and the events, including the viticulture, Young Physicians, and College Fair, which were absolutely amazing. We're doing a great job reaching all of our youth and constituents as well with all of those activities. We also got a recommendation, or we provided recommendations for increasing access and awareness of various programs, some of which you just heard, and we considered opportunities to host a multicultural event in the city of Temecula at the council's request and provided recommendations, and you are going to be seeing that. I would be remiss if I didn't promote our upcoming Culture Fest. So May 21st of this year, in conjunction with World Cultural Diversity Day, we are hosting, and we're really excited to see all the fruits of that labor come together. In October, we received the presentation on the housing development process in California in 2021 through 2029, housing element, and provided feedback on access and availability of housing to the community. So it's been very fruitful last year. And with that, I will turn it over to Commissioner Steed.
Good evening, councilmen and women, and Mayor Matt Ron. The end of our year came fast. We had a very busy year, but in November, we received an update on the Quality of Life Master Plan and the Public Engagement Plan and provided recommendations to Matt. We gave him a lot of recommendations. I think he was exhausted by the time we were done with him, but it was definitely a great meeting. And then in December, we were dark for the holidays. Some other things that we have accomplished through the year, implementation of annual state, federal recognized proclamations. We're very excited about that. The African American History Month in February, Women's History Month in March, which of course was done tonight. That was wonderful. The Asian Pacific Heritage Month in May, Pride Month in June, the National Hispanic Heritage Month in September, and the Native American Heritage Month in November. And we also came up with an annual day of service for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and we suggested that in 2021, and we did implement that in 2022. So that was a really exciting thing, and you can see from the pictures that we had a lot of cooperation from both city staff, city council, and of course our commissioners. We did also attend various events throughout the year. I'm sure you could see us at all the pictures, but it's such a great thing to be able to be part of our community, not only represent our city council, but also represent our community as a whole, as diverse as it is. And I would be remiss if I did not mention International Women's Day today. We are surrounded by courageous women that are truly making a difference every single day, and we are working towards world domination.
There you go.
So we have so much going on. So our theme for 2022 is relationships and data. And we're going to continue to build relationships with our community, with the residents, with businesses, nonprofits, schools, and et cetera. We're going to review and learn to apply the city disaggregated information available this March 22 per our census to deliver the city program and services. We're going to continue to carefully review and make thoughtful recommendations to the City Council advisors' capacity on items forwarded to the Ready Commission. We will continue to work on our equity value, core value, and our cultural fest as needed. So, in conclusion, I would like to leave you with this. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?
Amen.
We would like to thank you for the opportunity to serve, and if you have any questions for myself or any other commissioners.
All right, thank you so much. Any questions? Mr. Schwenk.
Well, technically not a question. I always feel awkward not having a question for any of these meetings that we have. I just want to say that I genuinely appreciate all of your work that you've done over the last year, or maybe it's the last couple of months, but our future is bright in Temecula, and it's due in large part to the Ready Commission. And I'm just really proud of all the work, again, that you're doing, and I'll see you at the Culture Fest.
Thank you. And we want to say, Commissioner Swank, we just appreciate you showing up at our meetings also. So we definitely appreciate that.
They're good meetings.
Yay. I have a comment.
Ms. Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor Ron, for suggesting that we do this every year. We did something similar, but nothing to this extent. And this is really great for many reasons, but it not only gives us a refresher course or an overview of everything that you've done, which is incredible. I mean, look at everything that's taken place, but it really does demonstrate the dedication that our community volunteers have, and that's really what you are. You're community volunteers, and you act as liaisons between the city and when you're out in the community. So I consider you our cheerleaders. And thank you very much. It's incredible, everything that you've accomplished for all of our commissions. And you really do a terrific and very necessary job. And I loved being on public traffic and safety. So, I really did. So enjoy every minute of it. It's hard work, but it's very, very rewarding.
Thank you. We thank you for the City Council for putting us together. Thank you. Oh, it's photo time.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Well, moving down the agenda here, we have public comments.
We have one non-agendized public comment. Jerry Hofstetter.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm a resident here in Temecula. I've been a homeowner here for since 2002, and I have a topic that I hope you would consider down the road. I know nothing happens immediately. With our population around 113,000, and it's the jewel of the Inland Empire. You can see it on the weekends with the traffic, how it explodes. Our population is growing, and the amount of people that comes through our community because of what you guys have all done to make it what it is, I really think it's time we start thinking about having our own fully operational police station. Our current situation with the Sheriff's Police, they're doing a great job. I mean, they respond great and everything. This would only strengthen their abilities to respond, serve, and protect our community. Our own police station would provide faster response times and a stronger bond with the community and the police themselves. It makes sense. The overall efficiencies in having our own station would extremely enhance the way we handle our situations here in Temecula. So I would hope that you'd all at least consider the idea of having a full-function police station based in Temecula. That's all I have. Thanks for hearing from me.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks for all your service.
All right. City Council reports. Who would like to go first? Stu.
So we had an incredible thing happen. The Temecula Valley girls soccer team, here we are, Women's Celebration Month, and we won the state championship. Yeah. Temecula Valley Bears, yeah. So,
Go Bears.
Yeah, so I just wanted to acknowledge them. And then we are going to bring them in for formal acknowledgement with all the certificate and all the good stuff. So that's my spiel. Yes.
Great news. All right, who else? Mr. Schwank.
Yeah, thank you. I've got a couple, so I'll try to be quick. You can see on the screen we have a new Temecula Arts and Culture guide map, and I thought this would be a really great opportunity to daylight this for the community. So tonight we're going to highlight this new Temecula Arts and Culture map. This project was led by TCSD's Cultural Arts Division, specifically Community Services Superintendent Bea Barnett, Community Services Manager Tracy Frick, and Community Services Coordinator 2, Katrina Thorson, with graphic design assistance by artist Gary Hovland and designer Nick Tierce. This original map shown on the video screen above is also completely accessible online, and it has an interactive format on our GIS map. And a huge thank you to GIS Supervisor Aaron Matthews from our Information Technology and Support Services Department for helping with that. I really appreciate that work. We also have a short video that I'd like to show. So it's really neat, and if you have a chance, go on the city's website and check this out. So it's the beautiful map. It's functional. It contains detailed descriptions highlighting Temecula's extensive network of facilities, galleries, and public art. Visitors can follow the map to find public art and learn about cultural offerings and opportunities at Temecula's facilities and parks. Visit Temecula Valley Visitors Center and Temecula Special Events. The map is available free at the Temecula Valley Museum, Old Town Temecula Community Theater, the Civic Center, and visit Temecula Valley Visitor Center. It can also be viewed, downloaded, and printed directly from the website. Also, I'd like to point out that there have been many other interesting and informative interactive GIS maps for the public to view, redistricting on there as well, on our GIS map. So you can head over to temeculaca.gov/parkmap for more interactive information. So thank you very much for entertaining me with that, and great job, staff. It's really neat to see, sort of condensed into one space, everything that the city has to offer. All right, Read Across America Day was a little different this year, but I am really proud that council participated in this. This was something that we've done for quite a while. So I wanted to say thank you publicly to council and staff for reading in this. I'd also pictured here as our city manager and assistant city manager. Directors Joel and Russo also read, as well did several other employees. And the feedback from the children, my wife's a school teacher, and so she came home and she was, sort of downloading with me everything that the kids were saying. And they really loved it. Some folks read with their pets, right? So that you get a sort of intimate look into the person versus going into the classroom. So the kids genuinely appreciated it. I know there's a lot of value going into the classroom.
I look terrifying in that picture. Jeez, thanks for that. Why, my goodness, those poor kids.
They loved it. They genuinely did. And I just wanted to say thank you to staff and the community as a whole. Jillian Larson read, I could go down the list. A very significant amount of folks in the community read, and it's very meaningful to these students in the time that we're living right now to be able to provide this to students and make them feel like they were part of a very big day. So I just wanted to say thank you for everyone for participating. And then last but not least, I wanted to highlight with gas prices rising, RTA is offering a 25-cent fare promotion. This is essentially rolling back the fares to 1977. So we are retro, we are cool, hop on the bus. Students and youth actually ride for free on RTA on every fixed bus route. The city of Temecula runs Route 55, which is also free, dedicated school route. We have the 24 route here in Temecula, and then there's commuter link routes as well. I wanted to just let everyone know that for this month, the rest of this month in April, that you can hop on the bus for 25 cents. We'll be looking to bring back the beach bus. The beach bus is a hit over the summer to ride from Temecula to Oceanside Pier, a direct link. And I know that's a favorite for parents. You can put your kids on that beach bus, they get to the beach, and then they can come back. So excited about that. And then finally, and this is just me talking, just some heartfelt comments. For the last 12, 13 days, we've watched the news, we've seen social media, we've read news articles about the war in Ukraine. And I would feel a bit awkward if we didn't just acknowledge that, what's going on in the world, as we sit here in a free, democratic country, and the people's house here, the city of Temecula, this house of government. I just want the people in Ukraine to know, and even people in our community to know that we stand for freedom, we stand beside them, we stand for democracy, and I just didn't want that to pass. I didn't want our meeting to go without saying something. The images that I'm seeing are horrific. We're all seeing them, and seeing civilians and children killed is disturbing. Again, I just didn't want that to pass. And I will ask that, with the concurrence of my council colleagues, that we adjourn tonight's meeting in support of people in Ukraine and democracy around the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Alexander?
All right, just a quick note that I had from this weekend. I just want to thank the Old Town Temecula Community Theater for putting on the 10th annual jazz. I believe we had community services taking pictures over there. I wasn't able to get any pictures, but it was a wonderful festival. And the reason why I bring this up is as I looked out into the crowd, I saw a much older crowd, and I actually brought my son who plays the drums. And I just want to encourage parents to bring out their children to these theater productions and things like that, because there's so much that they can learn from. There's so much that they are going to build on. And the people that were in there were incredible and inspiring. I think there were people in there just 80s or 90s maybe, and to be able to have a young child look at that, how incredible, inspiring. So I just want to encourage grandkids, our kids, to get out into these areas now that things are opened up, to really start flourishing back in our city. And one of the things I have to say was incredible, talk about gas prices, how we don't have to drive down to San Diego to go find this stuff. We have it right here in our city. So I encourage you guys, get out to the Merc. I even saw a country concert there the night before. So just encourage you guys, just get out. If you don't really get out very often, just do something different and just support our city. So I just thank them for giving us the opportunity as Temecula to have that here in our city. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Oh, Ms. Edwards.
Sorry. I was asked to attend opening day for Temecula Valley Little League, and of course, they haven't been able to have any baseball games because of COVID for the last couple of years. And it was an incredible sight to see. There must have been 3,000, 4,000 people at the sports park. And I'm very proud to say that League President Eric Schaefer and his wife have done a tremendous job. And they had, for the first time in 10 years, over 1,000 baseballers sign up. And they all showed up in their uniforms. And of course, the T-ballers were my favorite because their hats all fit down over their ears and they look like this. So if you ever want to have a great time, spend a Saturday and go out and just stay at the sports park just for a little while and watch Little League. It'll make you feel young again to see all those great kids. But for the first time in 10 years, they broke 1,000 signups. It's amazing.
Very good. Thank you. All right, and I have just one quick slide. So there was a PSA put out by Assemblymember Marie Waldron talking about recreational use of marijuana and the vote in 2016. Unfortunately, it hasn't eliminated much in the way of illegal cannabis or marijuana sites in a lot of the rural areas. I just wanted to highlight this because I thought, while we're still working in public safety and kind of talking about our crime statistics and all the success we have, I wanted to let everybody know that this is still a big issue, and it's nice to see the Riverside Sheriff's Department is working so hard and diligently on this, along with our district attorney's office. But just wanted to highlight that in our own community here, Riverside County Sheriff's Department, within our whole region, has located over 1,500 illegal grow sites, comprised over 2.5 million plants over the last 2 years within Riverside County. That is a huge effort to be able to do that. And so the only reason it's being brought up is just in that spirit of public safety. A lot of us live and work around the area, and a lot of this happens in our rural communities, including wine country and Duluth and surrounding parts of Temecula. And so it's best if you all stay vigilant in this, and if you see something, say something, and make sure you call the hotline here or call the Riverside Sheriff's Department to make folks aware. And they are definitely doing a remarkable job. In fact, I've contacted our own Captain Hall myself on a couple of events there, and so it's always nice to see that there's a quick response, and this is taken very seriously in our community. So just wanted to put that out there as a public service announcement. All right, moving on to the consent calendar. All matters are routine. I don't have to read this anymore, do I? Oh, I'm just going to move on to the consent calendar and say item number 1 is to waive the reading of standard ordinances and resolutions. Item number 2 is approve action minutes of February 22, 2020. 3 is approve our list of demands. 4 is approve the U.S. House of Representatives District Office Lease Amendment at the Temecula Civic Center for our Congressman Darrell Issa. Number 5 is approve sponsorship agreement with JDS Creative Academy for the 2022 DigiFest Temecula at the request of Councilmembers Edwards and Stewart. Item number 6, approve sponsorship agreement with Reality Rally Incorporated for the 2022 Reality Rally at the request again of Edwards and Stewart. Item number 7, approve sponsorship agreement with Temecula Valley Genealogical Society for facility use at the Ronald H. Roberts Temecula Public Library. Item number 8, approve sponsorship agreement with the Heart of Temecula Leo Club in support of facility use at the Ronald H. Roberts Temecula Public Library. Item number 9, approve fee schedule for the use of Premier Sports Parks, the Sports Ranch at Somers Bend and the Patricia H. Birdsall Sports Park. Item number 10 is to issue public report pursuant to Government Code Section 6585D regarding interim urgency ordinance number 2022-3 establishing regulations related to urban lot splits and housing units built in accordance with Senate Bill 9. Item number 11, approve Second Amendment to agreement with St. Francis Electric LLC for on-call traffic signal maintenance. Item number 12, approve cooperative agreement with the State of California Department of Transportation for construction of the French Valley Parkway I-15 improvements, Phase 2, PW 16-01. Item number 13, approve agreement for the funding of transportation uniform mitigation fee with Riverside County Transportation Commission for $3.5 million toward the construction of I-15 congestion relief project, PW 19-02. Item number 14, receive and file temporary street closures for 2022 Springfest events. I am looking for a motion.
I'll move consent.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. All right, and that passes 5-0, and I just want to acknowledge once again the incredible work that our Public Works folks are doing on the I-15 and, the just massive amount of funds that are going into improving this and, years of effort coming in to help relieve traffic congestion finally. And just want to acknowledge again that the city of Temecula has taken over as lead agent. I think that's really important to recognize. The city of Temecula has taken over as lead agency in the construction project on the I-15 corridor, and Caltrans has very willingly stepped back to allow us to do that. It speaks very highly, I think, of our Public Works Department and staff and the remarkable team you have here, Mr. City Manager, but it also speaks very highly of the fact that a city like us actually is doing the job of the state of California. So congratulations on that, everyone. All right, I am going to recess our council meeting to the Community Services.
And I will call to order the Temecula Community Services District meeting. Madam Secretary, please note we're all still here. Do we have any public comments?
We do not.
All right, so we go on to consent calendar. Item number 15, approve approve action minutes of February 22nd, 2022. And number 16, approve cooperation agreement between Temecula Community Services District and the Temecula Great Stompers Square Dance Club in support of facility use.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Please vote. All right, that passes 5-0. Director of Community Services, do we have a report?
We do indeed. I just wanted to call everyone's attention to the Carnival of Music hosted by Temecula Valley Symphony on Saturday, March 19th at 3 p.m. at the CRC Amphitheater. And we'd just like to encourage everyone to bring their family blankets and lawn chairs down to the amphitheater to experience the Carnival of Music. This free outdoor concert will be performed by the 60-piece Temecula Valley Symphony under the baton of musical director and conductor John Mario. Young musicians will also be featured from the Temecula Valley Youth Symphony and the Temecula Valley Junior Youth Symphony. And that concludes my report this evening.
Do we have a report on the special games?
Yes, there's a slide for you. I believe Jonathan can bring that up.
Okay, please do. All right. Since I wasn't there, could you give the report?
Yes, indeed. Let me
All
get
right.
right over to that.
Perfect.
Oh, it looks great.
The special games took place this past Saturday at Great Oak High School. The event ran from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m., and we had over 300 attendees, including student and high school volunteers and athletes and their family members who braved the chilly and sometimes rainy weather. We had a great turnout, And we welcome special guests Supervisor Chuck Washington and Ready Commissioner Eric Faulkner, who both volunteered at the event. So it's a wonderful annual event. We love hosting it, and we're excited to do it again next year.
Cool. Yeah, Chuck looks real happy right there.
Yeah, I'm sending him a picture.
He's right there front and center.
Very
Yeah,
enthusiastic.
I'm sending it right
Yes.
now.
All right, so general matters report.
Nothing further tonight, Mr. President.
All right, Board of Directors, anything?
Nope.
All right, I'm going to adjourn this meeting to the next one.
Okay, let me gather here. So we move past items 17 and 18, and we are going to move on to item 19. Consider COVID-19 Pandemic Community Reinvestment Program Strategy at the request of myself and Councilmember Edwards. Can we have a staff report, please?
Yes, we can. Mr. Mayor. Thanks again, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, members of the council. This really is a feel-good and exciting item. But before we hear from the subcommittee members, I wanted to briefly remind you how we got to this point. Just looking around the dais here and how regular meetings and activity has resumed, I'm sure we can all still recall the significant impacts associated with the pandemic over the past 2 years, both the physical and the fiscal. As it relates to the physical, the city's efforts are well documented, and I remain proud to be associated with such a city. Which brings us to the fiscal and how so many community groups and partners were negatively impacted as a result of the global pandemic. This ultimately brings us to this recommended strategic, transparent, and outward-facing community reinvestment program. So, last year, on October 26th, the City Council approved utilizing the city's full American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, or ARPA, allocation, which was just over $14 million, in two equal, approximately $7 million increments to fund public safety services, thereby making a like amount of general fund dollars available to reinvest in the community and assist in mitigating the negative economic impacts of the global pandemic. And as the finance director shared during that meeting, this strategy was previously approved by the city's auditors as an allowable option in appropriating the funds. So, when asked, what did the city of Temecula do with our ARPA funds? The first part of the answer is we utilize those funds for associated public safety costs. However, the general fund dollars that were freed up is sort of the second part, and staff heard very clearly from the City Council and later refined by the Strategic Fiscal Planning Subcommittee that the allocation of those funds should be outward-facing, which allows for greater community impact and transparency. So, on February 22nd of this year, a couple things occurred. During the mid-year budget process, the City Council established the COVID-19 Pandemic Community Reinvestment Program, or CRP, fund to account for various community reinvestment grants to be established by the City Council. Initial funding for this program was created via a transfer of $7,040,000 from the general fund to the COVID-19 Pandemic Community Reinvestment Program Fund for fiscal year 2021-22. Also, staff met with Mayor Ron and Councilmember Edwards to refine the scope of the recommended categories, and I'll stress once again, for overall community benefit, impact, and fiscal transparency. The Council Subcommittee recommended the following categorical appropriations over the next 2 fiscal years from the city's general fund. First is business support for a total of $3,580,000. This is broken down by $1.5 million for financial support for Old Town outdoor dining. With these funds, dependent upon council direction at the conclusion of the current outdoor dining pilot program, will be designed to assist restaurants within Old Town to develop dining parklets that meet the city's aesthetic criteria, as well as ADA standards and pedestrian safety. And $500,000 to launch comprehensive wayfinding decorative signage throughout Old Town, including the development of a sign program and construction of decorative signs. These decorative wayfinding signs are intended to help direct visitors to parking, restaurants,
businesses, and civic facilities throughout O-Town. As proposed by the city's Office of Economic Development, a partnership with the Small Business Development Center at SBDC, I'm bringing brick-and-mortar businesses into the digital world through a program called Main Street Digital, as recommended. This program will assist Temecula businesses in creating a digital presence, learning to drive traffic through paid and non-paid advertising. $1 million in general, $1 million in general business grants are also being proposed, where the overall use of these funds are concentrated on providing Temecula local businesses with support for workforce and staffing needs. Multiple strategies will be deployed for this in externships, internships, and on-the-job training. A rent waiver for the businesses at the Temecula Valley Entrepreneurs Exchange, or TVE2, and an enhanced effort to support the entrepreneurs of the Temecula Valley is also included. In addition to waiving rent at the city's business incubator for a defined period, it will also be used to recruit prospective tenants, and this would come in at about $80,000. And it gets better. Under nonprofit support and homeless services, a total of $3 million would be allocated. For our incredible nonprofits, a $2 million grant divided into 2 rounds of $1 million each will follow a similar policy currently used for the city's annual community services funding grant program, where oftentimes subcommittee members as well as the full city council comment about the great work being done by these local nonprofits, but the inability to award additional funding. Well, this would do just that. Round 1 will be in 2022, and round 2 will be in 2023, with applicants requesting up to $50,000 for goods and services expended no earlier than March 20th of 2020, when it's noted when the pandemic started, and no later than June 30th of 2024. The grant will aid local nonprofit organizations with eligible programs and projects that serve Temecula residents in some of the following categories, and that's families, youth, special needs, seniors, veterans, social service providers, the arts, and minorities. On the homeless services side, the additional $1 million in funding will assist staff in continuing to combat homelessness, mitigate encampment activity, including cleanups and fencing, provide outreach services, and ongoing support to the responsible compassion partners. Now, staff actually recommends dividing this allocation roughly in half and funding approximately $500,000 in expanded outreach, prevention, and diversion programs and other services, and $500,000 in infrastructure, primarily fencing in identified high-value areas along Temecula and Murrieta Creeks. And there's more. $5.5 million in housing assistance would be allocated, which the council actually approved $4 million of that amount at the previous meeting for the Vine Creek Affordable Housing Project that will provide for 60 units of affordable housing with 12 units designated for families with special needs. That's incredible. $1 million in funding designed to attract a future affordable housing project in Uptown Temecula, and $500,000 in residential rehabilitation grant programs to be provided through Habitat for Humanity to low, moderate income households to expedite the completion of critical home improvements, including those related to health and safety, ADA, and specific needs of seniors. Also included is $1 million in behavioral health services support funding to support veterans, first responders, that's police, fire, and medical services, and other at-risk individuals as identified by the city's homeless outreach team. That's typically associated with the city's homeless population needing behavioral health services in the form of a Temecula Safe grant. Now, the city would provide a grant to the Temecula Valley Hospital to assist veterans, first responders, and the other at-risk homeless individuals that reside or work in Temecula needing behavioral health services, which would seek to cover the gap between the insurance coverage and the cost of behavioral health care. The proposed grant amount would be from $5,000 to $25,000 per individual or family within the identified groups. The city's quality of life master plan prioritizes a core value of health and livable city that will allow for adequate community benefit findings to support the aforementioned and not a for-profit entity. Now, finally, $1 million in higher education and workforce development aimed at the Temecula campuses of Cal State San Marcos and MSJC for the creation of community and business certificate programs, accelerated degrees, build out of collaborative higher education environments, and more. Now, as stated earlier, it's anticipated that a total of $14,080,000 in wide-reaching community support grants will be appropriated from the city's general fund over the next 2 fiscal years to assist in mitigating the economic impacts of the global pandemic, with $7 million already being authorized by the City Council during the FY 21-22 mid-year budget process. Now, touching upon most departments, the balance of the team is also available to answer any questions, and that, Mr. Mayor, will conclude my staff report.
Okay. Well, maybe let's start with the subcommittee and see if, Ms. Edwards, if you wanted to provide any insight since you worked with me on this.
Sure. Well, I think it's obvious that the overall theme for this plan is public safety. And it is all out-facing, meaning it's going to go directly to the community to benefit Temecula residents. And we thought that was the most important thing. And you obviously saw the distribution of funds. And Mayor Ron and I discussed each one of those categories individually and really weighed the options that we had and where we wanted to prioritize. And so that's what's being presented to you tonight. And then you go ahead, Mayor Ron, since you had a tremendous amount of input in some, especially some areas of this regarding public safety.
Yeah, this was, I think, an interesting one for us because I think moving into 2020, we all prepared for the absolute worst of what could have potentially occurred in our community, and in particular from an economic perspective. And yet that wasn't what we experienced. And so I think we were very blessed in what had occurred, at least from an economic perspective. And the fears that we all had about businesses, suffering and closing down and all of that. We were just at the ribbon cutting the other day for our new Lexus dealership. And I recall in the middle of the pandemic, Lexus coming to us and saying, well, we want to start construction and development on a new dealership in town. And I'm thinking, talk about resilience in our community to have the businesses come to us and open up and the kind of response that we had, it seemed, I think, incredibly disingenuous of us as a city and as a city council to then take the $14 million that was allocated toward Temecula and not in some way put it out back into the community. And so 100% of these funds are really dedicated toward elevating our community with a focus on our core services, our support organizations, our nonprofit organizations, and key issues like housing, affordable housing, homelessness, and behavioral health, and support for our first responders in particular. And then we went further and started talking about workforce development programs and training to be able to get people back to work. We know businesses are struggling with that, so let's work closely with our higher education and training folks to develop the kinds of programs we need for the economy we have. And then, all of this really intended to help bolster this community. And I mean, this is probably going to be the only time in our city's history, or at least that we ever contemplate, where we have $14 million to basically place back out into the community. Mm-hmm. And so while a lot of cities, and they're fully justified in their own decision-making to be able to take those funds and backfill their general fund or police and fire support and all that, and a lot of cities have suffered in a lot of different ways that we didn't. So we're not necessarily diminishing them, but I think acknowledging that this, as a city, is 100% dedicated to other programs and other support, I think is a huge, huge opportunity for us to really do exactly what we talked about 2 years ago when all of this began, which was, and I remember sitting in your office, Aaron, when, all of this hit, and I remember us saying, those cities, those businesses, those individuals who keep their head down and continue working right now, will emerge stronger on the other side of this. And I think this speaks very highly of the work that our community did in that regard. And so this is just one more effort on our behalf to kind of put that back out there and make sure that we can continue to elevate this community.
And to fund existing programs that are already in place and doing a great job and that have a proven track record.
Yep. So I just have to say I couldn't be happier with the outcome, and I think we've spent a considerable amount of time talking to organizations and entities. One of the other things I will say, you saw the significant funds that are going back to support nonprofit organizations, and clarity will be provided on what exactly that means in future RFPs. But unlike past grant programs where our caps have been $5,000 to $10,000, the caps are $50,000, and I think we learned that with Michelle's Place a few years back, where we opened up a one-time grant to them, because I think the question at that time was they were undergoing their capital development and capital campaign to grow their support services for cancer victims in Temecula. And I remember sitting down with all of you again saying, a $5,000 grant isn't going to take them from where they are today to where they need to be into the future. But leveraging that $50,000 the way they did to, match with other funds from so many wonderful community partners, really helped move them into an amazing new resource that we've never had in our community. And so I would really hope to see some outstanding, nonprofits that we do have in our community step forward to apply for those funds and use that as the model of how best to really help you move forward, right? It's all about economic development and growth. And this is, a one-time opportunity for us to really help foster that. So that's all I have to say about that, but be happy to hear what the rest of you are thinking. Mr. Schwenk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you to the subcommittee, Councilmember Edwards as well for digging into this. When COVID hit, we were one of the first cities to open up our streets to dining, one of the first cities to offer grants to businesses to keep them open. There are days that being a council member are better than others. This is a good day to be a council member. As you go down through the presentation by Assistant City Manager Hawkins, and you look at, business support, outdoor dining, facade improvements, tourism, just general business grants. We're waiving rent for the Entrepreneurs Exchange. Nonprofit support, like you mentioned, is so critical, and I'm so happy to see as we go through some of those fundings where it's $5,000 and we sort of rack our heads and want to see more money sent to our nonprofits. So it's really nice to see that. Services for our unhoused residents, right? Like that's important. Mental health services, affordable housing, veterans. I mean, this is an exhaustive list of really great outwardly facing programs and funding for our community. So, I'm just genuinely proud to be a part of this council to be able to do this. We didn't know what was going to happen with COVID, and we weathered the storm pretty well, and we have an opportunity now to improve our community in some pretty significant ways. So I'm certainly looking forward to seeing this through and to fruition. So great job, and fully supportive of your recommendations. Thank you.
My turn?
Yes, please.
So great job on being able to, I think for all of us as council members to be able to put this thing together, great job to Marianne and Mayor Matt Ron to be able to lead this off, because we know that the businesses got hit, nonprofits got hit in a lot of different ways. Some areas closed down, but this is a way for us, as we know, to really just give back to our community during this time, to be able to thrive when needed. And when we're looking, as I was looking through, the businesses and the nonprofits, they're the backbone of our community. There are the ones that are creating the ability to be here. And so I just want to be able to thank you for allowing that money to be able to go to those organizations and areas. It's going to be wonderful to see Old Town Dining and see what that's going to what's going to happen there. It's going to be really wonderful to continue to hopefully eat outside and see how beautiful that's going to be. Another area that was going to be really incredible is the homeless services. It's obviously one of the top areas for our residents that it's a concern. And obviously, we are doing everything we can. We have great teams out there who are just kicking butt and taking names. I mean, there's nothing else I can say. They're doing wonderful things. And I'm just very thankful for that, because now they're going to have more tools to be able to do their jobs. And so that's going to be really wonderful. And the one question I do have is if we can just look at one area and maybe just add something here that just came up. And Mayor, this was an area that we looked at for the behavioral health services support. And obviously, our big areas, veterans, first responders, and the homeless. And I know we might have touched a little bit upon possibly even the youth, because they've had so much that they've had to deal with, the schooling and being taken out and in, and there's been a lot of mental health issues that they found on committing suicide, on how big that's been. So I don't know if that's an area that we can just maybe look at and just add into that section number 5 for behavioral health support for them as just an added to really be able to help. I think that's going to help overall, because they're just going to be so much more supported as they grow up through our city. So I don't know if that's an area that we can look at and what your thoughts are on that.
That is a welcome addition. I know we talked about it, and
Yeah,
it definitely needs to be on that list. So
Okay.
thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Stu?
All right. Yeah, again, thank you guys for spending time, creating this very unusual thing that not many cities can afford to do. And because our city really did rebound a lot quicker than other cities because of all the great things that, Temecula has to offer. And I do think supporting our nonprofits is huge, because I think they took the biggest hit during this whole pandemic. I think business survived a lot better just because of all the PPP loans and all the grants that was thrown at businesses, but nonprofits just didn't have that channel of money being thrown at them. So I'd like to see our nonprofits, because the city does give nonprofits money, but it's like a 10th of what we can afford to give them now. So it'll be a great thing to be able to hand over some really sizable checks that can really make a big difference.
And they couldn't fundraise either at the time.
No, right. So, they were really behind the 8 ball. So that's all I got to say.
Stu, thank you. Mr. Schwank?
And I wanted to add one thing, and it centers around transparency. If you go to the City of Temecula's website, we have a dedicated page for this ARPA funds. The council meeting from June is there with the presentation from June that's there. I suspect the council meeting from tonight will be there soon, as well as the presentation. It's really important for us to be transparent and outwardly facing with what we're doing, and here you are. If you can't make it, you can go to the city's website and get caught up on everything related to these ARPA funds. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Very good.
All right. Well, I will look for a motion in a second, but before we do, I just wanted to say 2 quick things. One is, none of this is possible without the 4 of you working with us on all of this. This is, I think, one of the, it's funny when you look back on the things that you do over your tenure here on the city council, and this is one of those times that I think we really will look back on and say, we did a wonderful thing for our community, and this was a good opportunity for us to really help foster, that growth and quality of life. So I thank you all for all the support and conversations that we have been able to have on this. The other thing, though, I would like to highlight is not as poetic, but the Rose Institute and a few others have been doing some PRAs related to the use of ARPA funds. And if you were just to look at, so the way we're doing this is a little unique, because we're taking these funds and we are indeed backfilling our public safety costs with those funds, which is the allowable use under, federal guidelines. But rather than just let it sit there, we are taking that exact amount and putting it back out through our general fund. So my concern is that if some sort of analysis is ultimately done by these organizations like the Rose Institute, that looks at how did cities, spend these dollars. If all you really look at is where the funds went into what account and, and that sort of coding, you're going to miss the picture of what Temecula actually did here today.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we can sort of reach out to these folks as these things are being done and make sure that on our websites and on the information that we provide on these Records Act requests and everything else, that we're absolutely clear what actually occurred here today, because I think it tells a great story.
It does.
So with that, I am looking for a
I
motion.
move approval.
Second.
All right, please cast your votes with the addition recommended by Councilmember Stewart, or Alexander, please. Yes. All right, that passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, moving on, we are to item number 20, receive update on police base of operations building sizing needs assessment at the request of myself and Council Member Stewart. So who would like to kick this off?
Mr. Mayor, I'm up again. And just over a year ago at the February 23rd, 2021 City Council meeting, at the request of Councilmember Stewart, the council created the Police Base of Operations Ad Hoc Committee, which is currently comprised of Mayor Ron and Councilmember Stewart. And soon thereafter, the subcommittee met with staff to review facility costs for the current policing model. And staff also presented information related to response times versus travel times. The subcommittee again met with staff to further refine the scope of interest, and it was determined that a needs assessment was required regardless of end user, contracted police force, or standalone independent police force. So staff engaged Citygate, the public safety consultant, that recently completed the regional JPA police feasibility study to conduct a high-level space needs assessment based upon their intimate knowledge of the current policing model serving the city. This approach, as determined by the subcommittee, was a prudent approach to determine if a more detailed or exhaustive police master plan study would be required, following the completed project findings related to the police base of operations. As such, in January, Gary Elliott, Senior Associate at Citygate, along with Jeff Katz of their partner architectural firm JKA, presented preliminary findings to the subcommittee and are here tonight to walk the full council through their project scope and space needs assessment, and along with city and RSO staff to answer any questions. And with that.
Thank you, Kevin, and Mr. Mayor, members of the council, city staff. Good evening. Let me say first that I've had the opportunity over the past couple of weeks to spend a few days, and what a wonderful community you have. In fact, I was just telling your good captain that I'd like to bring my wife down here. We come from, I live up in the wine country in Northern California, and so I discovered that this is the heart of Southern California wine country, and so I want to come down. But anyway, thank you. Very honored to be here today again. As Mr. City Manager said, I am Gary Elliott. I'm with Citygate Associates. I'm a 30-year veteran of law enforcement and a recipient of PERS 3% of 50, and I'm in my second career now with Citygate. And I'll be providing you with the update on this project tonight. Joining me here at the podium is Jeff Katz from Jeff Katz Architecture, and he will be talking about space needs and some of the costing associated with that. Next slide, please. Real quick, this is just the background of the project. As you know, Citygate currently contracts with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department for police services and has done so since incorporation. Kevin made reference to the study that the Citygate did previously involving the Temecula and the 7-city JPA study we looked at, and that study was determined to be cost prohibitive or impractical. The city formed a police base of operations subcommittee to consider options, and then in July 2021, you engaged Citygate for this project. Next slide, please. So this is the scope of work for the project from Citygate's end and JKA. Using data that, from the previous report, we reviewed Riverside County Sheriff's law enforcement current staffing models, their estimated needs of a standalone police department at present and at Temecula's full build-out, and then in conjunction with Jeff Katz Associates, convert the personnel requirements into police building space needs as well. And then also assess 3 city identified building sites and provide recommendations. Next slide, please. This is the methodology that we used. Again, leveraging the JPA, I'm gonna make numerous references to the previous report. We met with Captain Hall and his staff, very cooperative, very helpful. In fact, when I told Captain Hall about my plans to come down for the city site estimate, he offered to come pick me up from the airport, so very helpful. We developed a conceptual model using current service levels. We then projected some modest staffing increases based on Temecula's projected population at full build-out, and that's according to your current general plan. And then lastly, we looked at a couple of potential police building sites identified by the city staff. Next slide, please. So the next series of slides outline your current law enforcement service levels and are based on your most recently signed contract with the Sheriff's Department and any current amendments. So your police service contract is based on a set number of hours of patrol each day, as well as a certain number of specialized services or dedicated positions. Currently, the city pays for 205 hours of patrol every day and the specialized services outlined in this slide. Next slide, please. So the positions outlined on this slide are those positions that are built into that patrol rate, along with the dedicated positions that you pay for, and are assigned at the Southwest Station and referred to as rate-supported positions. Next slide, please. And then finally, this last list of slides are also built into the patrol rate, but they're regional or centralized and not necessarily working out of the Southwest Station. And again, for a deeper understanding of how the patrol rate works, I would refer you back to the JPA report. Next slide. I like Excel, and so I use a lot of tables in my presentation. Here's a table view of the previous 3 slides that depicts both the contracted and rate-supported positions, both local and regional, on this chart. It's in one chart. And so it comes up with the bottom line of FTEs, those are full-time employees. And you can see it's 167.14 FTEs equivalent. Next slide. And then based on the FTE analysis of the current service levels we just reviewed, we developed the following conceptual model of what a police-provided city police department might reasonably look like. Next slide. And so this is that model. It's based on your current service levels and current population level. And so you come up with 139 sworn, 67 total professional, and 206 total employees. Next slide. In this model, we projected the city's population at full build-out according to the current general plan, and then added modestly to the Field Operations Division to account for an increase in the calls for service commensurate with the population increase. Of course, actual staffing increases would be socialized through the city manager's office and reflect the vision of the council at the time. Next slide, please. No, that slide. So the next 2 slides are, again, as I said, I like to use Excel. This slide allows you to do a side-by-side comparison of the 3 FTE models presented, the current model deployed by the Sheriff's Department today, then the conceptual model, what the police department might look like at today's population, and then at full build-out. And then the 3rd slide totals them up. Next slide, please. And one more slide. And so that's a summary of the FTEs. Next slide. So in the formal report, we had some benchmark data that I felt was relevant for this presentation, and we expanded on some of that. So next slide. So here we have a series of cities in and around the area, including Temecula, and these are just comparisons that we did in the previous report. And in this case, they're all sorted by population. So as you can see, Temecula is just a little above average in the cities that we benchmarked. Now, again, this is using the current service level. So the RCSD is Riverside County Sheriff's Department. Next slide, please. So now here you have the same cities benchmarked, and now they're sorted by ratio of sworn officers to 1,000 residents. And again, I did this based on your current sheriff's model. So you can see, again, Temecula is highlighted so you can see where you stack up with those benchmark cities. Next slide, please. And this is really the payoff slide. I've sorted the slides in this one based on the crime rates. Now this is using 2020 data because at the time that was the most current data provided. And as you can see, Temecula very, very, very low on the crime rate, violent crime rate. And as you heard in the presentation earlier, this is 2020 data. There have been decreases in that even significantly since then.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why you can say that Temecula is one of the safest cities in America. Not the 20th, but the 16th, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and with that, I will turn it over to my esteemed colleague to discuss some space needs. Jeff?
Great. Thanks, Gary. Good evening. So we took the information that Gary pulled together and looked at for a new facility, what would that translate into in terms of building square footage and site area necessary to support that. And we weren't looking at any specific building or site. This was just based on the number of people at build-out, what it would take. And so we went through and identified all of the exterior parking spaces and developed some operational site area necessary. Next slide. As well as went through each of the functional spaces within the building. So this included public-facing spaces, executive area, next slide please, as well as the patrol staff and any common area spaces. And so we totaled all those up, but next slide please. Again, continue to go through all the different areas that needed to be included in here. Next slide. And including utility spaces, sorry, next slide. And totaled everything up and came up with a total building square footage of approximately 36,000 square feet to support all of the needs necessary for a full police facility for the city of Temecula. So we ended up with essentially 36,000 square feet translates into about 3/4 of an acre of total area. And so we looked at that in conjunction with the site requirements and came up with a need of about 3 to 3.5 acres of total land to support it. Obviously, single-story buildings take up more space than two-story buildings on that site. So again, this was just sort of in a perfect world scenario. If you were going to look for a site, here's what we'd want to look for. And so that came up with the totals that we developed for the overall site itself. And from there, Gary, I think we went into, you want to talk about potential building sites?
And then a couple of weeks ago, we came down and we looked at, with the city's escort, we looked at 3 sites. And this would be the first site. Actually, you'll talk your notes.
Okay. So this is Old City Hall. I'm sure you're all very familiar with that. So about 26,000 square feet of building space. We put, for these 3 sites that we visited, what we identified as sort of the pros and cons. So one of the pros, obviously, with this is it's cost effective. You already own the building. It is not designed or was not designed as a central service facility. which we would normally anticipate for a new facility. Difficult to renovate to meet essential service requirements, not out of the question, but difficult to achieve. And then obviously smaller than what we've identified as the need at full build-out. So that limitation would potentially restrict some of your future growth. Next slide. Then we looked at another office plaza building, roughly 52,000 square feet. There's an adjacent, almost 17,000 square foot of retail adjacent to that lot. The building is certainly large enough to support the current need and the future growth. Plenty of parking at that site. From a strategic standpoint, multiple points of entry, so it would support secure portions of the building as well as public access. Again, not designed to meet essential service requirements. There are some challenges with creating accessible entries to all the existing entrances on that building. And then one of the things we look at with new facilities like this is the ability to secure the facility, sometimes referred to as hardening of the building or protecting it from outside sources. That would be expensive and challenging to do in this location. And the existing improvements don't really adapt themselves well to the department's needs, so it would require a fairly extensive tenant improvement project to modify the interior. Next slide. The last site we looked at was a business center complex, about 39,000 square feet. We didn't really identify any significant pros to this site. Cons, it was currently pending a sale, again, not designed to essential service. We had some concerns about site and building safety and security. The existing improvements weren't really, didn't really meet the needs of the department, and there was not enough available parking. So we did not consider this to be a really viable site. Next slide.
So that was no.
Gary, you were there. You want to talk about this?
Well, I also toured the current sheriff's station. Captain Hall and his staff were very accommodating. Obviously, it's a 32,000 square foot approximately. They have approximately 176 personnel working out of that building now. In terms of the pros and cons, as you see there, I have an asterisk on cons because it says just outside city limits. The reason we listed that under the cons section is because for the purposes of this exercise, the question was finding a police station within city limits. So in that respect, it's on the con side. But one, as was pointed out to me earlier, one might say that that was a pro when there were demonstrations going on at the sheriff's department and it wasn't inside the city limits. So with that, next slide. And with that, we'll entertain any questions and discussion.
All right, thank you. So let's start with questions. Anybody on the council?
Mimi?
Ms. Edwards?
I was trying to follow, and I couldn't tell, we know of Old City Hall, obviously. I couldn't really tell which building number 2 was, but it seemed to be on the corner of Winchester and Inez, perhaps? Or, I mean, Jefferson? Okay, so would that be the northwest corner? Because Jack in the Box is one, Temecula Car Wash is one, and then there's a, well, it used to be a doctor's office on the southwest corner, so that only leaves the northwest corner.
The site was Jefferson and Winchester.
Okay, so it's near Felipe's then.
Okay.
And was it that actual building? Was it the Felipe's building? Was it in that strip mall there?
If I can, it was just simply part of the retail area and office plaza there. And,
okay.
And the sites that were provided were simply just for examples and comparison. If the council decides after tonight to pursue this in more detail, then that will be an additional scope, and we'll actually charge, if it's the same consultants with drilling down a bit more, We're just providing 3 potential sites for discussion and illustrative purposes.
Did I understand that none of them was suitable? None of them was deemed suitable because of they needed improvements, or the building wasn't the right configuration, or?
We didn't make a judgment on suitable or not suitable. We were simply identifying pros and cons of all of them. So it's really up to the council to decide sort of next step if we explore that further to determine suitability.
Okay, and then I understood you to say the only thing that was wrong with the current facility was that we said we wanted to look someplace else. Or we wanted to look at something else, right? And other than that, okay, I have a picture now. And then I'm familiar with the one on Commerce Center Drive. I know that building. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else questions? None. Okay.
I had a quick question.
Oh, yes.
So looking at the old city hall, so I'm seeing it has 26,000 square feet to it. We're needing approximately 36,000 feet, is that correct? So, go ahead.
No, that's correct.
Okay, so would I be saying this right, is if the only way in that area, if I know that area well enough, that we go is up, is that correct? And could we do that to be able to add that, let's say another 10,000 square feet? Or possibility, do we also need more? Because my question also, question 2 part is, if we're looking at somewhere having 135,000 people population here, we know due to state regulations and things like that, that there's a very good possibility that we might surpass that. So is that something that we need to say, look at this police station and say, we need to possibly even go bigger than 36,000 square feet? And is that possible at that station?
So the 36,000 square feet was based on the needs assessment for full build-out.
Okay.
So that did take that into consideration. In terms of the existing Old City Hall facility, I'm not sure that you would necessarily need 36,000 square feet today. So if you were looking at that as an interim solution, it might be just fine the way it is. If you're looking at that as the ultimate 50 to 75-year solution, then we would need to look at alternatives to continue to expand that, either now or in the future. Potentially could go up, but that is, again, looking at what it would take to make that building meet current code or essential service requirements, and then what on top of that you would be adding to add another floor above that could present some challenges.
So to my understanding right now, just so I have a good understanding, a solid understanding, because I wouldn't want to have to move the building. You know, our biggest thing is let's invest in something that's going to be prosperous, and so we have to continue to pour money into that and be wise with our money. So with that, in your opinion, if we're going to end up continuing to build on our city, would that be a good spot for it? Because I'm hearing that there could be some definite potential issues that we can foresee coming up as far as sizing as big as our city might and possibly will get.
Personal opinion.
Please.
If you are going to go down this path and you're going to try and develop a facility to accommodate the city's policing needs for the next 50 to 75 years, a new facility that meets all of the essential service requirements, that is sized to not only accommodate today's needs, but the future growth of the city, even if it's not fully built out within the shell of that building, I think would certainly be a better approach.
Thank you.
To give you a permanent solution to this.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
Mr. Mayor, I have another couple of questions. So what we're doing is we're designing the cart before we even have the horse. So this is, I mean, it's kind of a speculative, but if I could ask Captain Hall, what exactly is going to take place in this building? Because we know that our police officers are in their zones, they're not in the building, and they don't return to the building throughout the day, correct? Is this going to be a holding place for prisoners? Is it all just administrative? And then we still have to book at the jail. Do we still have to staff people at the jail as well, in addition to what we would do at this building?
Well, yes and no. All the administrative functions for the city of Temecula would move out of what is now the Southwest Sheriff Station to this new building. All the deputies, investigators, support staff, everybody that it takes to run the Temecula Sheriff Station would move into this building. There would be a pseudo holding facility there where they would release people via citation or after holding onto them for a certain amount of time. And then some would be driven to the jail and booked there. The jail is staffed separately. No deputy sheriffs assigned to the contract or to the Southwest Station work at the jail. We merely drop our in-custodies off at the back door and leave. There's a little bit of processing that goes on there, but our staff doesn't work there. So you would essentially take a significant portion of the staff that currently works out of the Southwest Sheriff Station and transfer them to this new building.
And is there any benefit to doing that? I mean, it's administrative work, so they're in offices, they're on their phones, they're doing investigative work, they're calling, they're making contacts, they're following up.
Well, that's mostly done with the deputy sheriffs mostly do that in their cars in the field. Generally, when a deputy sheriff leaves for their 12-hour shift, they leave the building and they don't return.
Okay. So I heard you say that there might be releases. Are we going to be releasing criminals into the community? Because they're not being released in the community now. They're out at the jail area.
Well, yes. I mean, some now are released, say, from the City Hall storefront now, right? They get released via citation there. Sometimes they're released from the backseat of the police car where they were arrested by citation. Sometimes they're brought to the station, whether it's your own building or it's the Southwest Sheriff Station out in French Valley, and they're released there via citation. Sometimes they're taken to a lot of times they're taken to the jail and released immediately via citation there as well. But that occurs, outside the city limits.
So what's going to be taking place actually in this building is administrative work that's now being done at the Justice Center.
Yes, the accounting and finance staff would be in this building. Your clerical bureau would be in this building. You'd have a public-facing portal like you do here at the storefront at City Hall at this building where the public could come in and have reports taken, talk to investigators, register as a sex offender, an arson offender, have their fingerprints taken, receive copies of reports, file traffic collision reports, anything they would do at the public-facing counter here at the storefront.
So we have that existing taking place right here at the storefront now?
Yes, and at the Southwest Station.
Okay, so our police officers are not going to be at this building?
Sometimes they will, but generally, like I said, they hold a briefing in this building at the beginning of their shift. And then they all leave in their police cars and they go to their assigned beats. And they stay in those beats for the majority of the day, right? If they have to transport, we have community service officers that will pick up low-level offenders and transport them to jail or to the station or wherever they need to go for processing. Sometimes deputies leave their beats to assist deputies in other locations, handle some follow-up investigation that's more complicated, or to transfer arrestees to the jail or to the station. But if they're out and they're not handling a call for service in their beat, they're doing proactive patrols in their beat, they don't go back to the station and wait. And I've referred to this before as like the fire station model, right? When the big truck's not out doing something, they all ride it back to the fire station and they wait there for the alarm to go off and then they leave again together. The police model is not like that.
And so they roll independently and they have everything they need within their cars to accomplish whatever administrative tasks they need to do?
Correct. They have a rolling office. So everything they need is in the office.
What percentage of a police officer's time is spent at the building?
Well, hopefully very little. They should be in the field, in their beat, the majority of the time.
So-
Detectives spend more of their time in the station, on their computers, on their phone, working with the crime analysts, collaborating with other detectives at other stations, but a majority of that is done from their desk. Our special teams deputies spend more time in the station sometimes than they do in the field. They have desks, they have cubicles, they have workstations. Patrol deputies don't have this. They have a car.
So basically, we're looking at a building like this, really, it's going to serve administrative purposes. If the police aren't there, they have their briefing there, they aren't there in the building, using the building. So really, we're just moving the admin from where it is now at the Justice Center to a building that we would have to build, expand, or renovate, or remodel, or do tenant improvements to accommodate.
That's correct. And deputy sheriffs, patrol deputy sheriffs, would begin and end their shifts at this building. That's where the cars would be parked. That's where we would have an armory where they would book and enter evidence. So those kinds of administrative functions would now occur at that building.
Is there, I realize this is a speculative question, but is there any advantage to doing administrative functions at one building or another?
No.
No benefit.
There is, I would say there's probably a benefit to the community when it comes to having to do business at a police building. Some of them are now having to drive out to French Valley to conduct that business at the station versus doing it at a building that was centrally located somewhere in the city. However, they can do that at the storefront
Right
here.
here.
They may live closer to French Valley and choose to go there.
Okay.
Yeah. Could I ask a question? How much time does it take for an officer to get from French Valley to his post in the city somewhere? Let's start talking about that data. I understand. That's not what this conversation is about. We didn't start this conversation to start our own police force. This is not what this is about. This is about creating a centrally located police station that our officers can come and go from, that's easily accessible and quickly to mobilize out of. It's not about what she's talking about. It's like, I'm so sick of this conversation. It's like, that's not why we started this report. This report was to look at how do we centrally locate a police station that we might want to create a PD out of one day. And we're not talking this year, we're not talking 10 years from now. But eventually, this city may want to go to a police station model, a police department model. And if we don't do something about that today, we've already discussed the possibilities of land. There isn't any. We are evaporating. We have one really logical place, and it's the old police station, or old city hall. That is essentially it. Now, that footprint is a lot larger than we're saying. We could actually build a 10,000 square foot building next to the one we have right now if we needed to. We have plenty of parking there. We've got access to Old Town, the mall, all within minutes. Now, I understand the patrolling model. The patrolling model is they're out there all the time. And I understand that when an officer is traveling from French Valley to South Temecula, there's still an officer in South Temecula. I understand all that. But now we're replicating, we're actually paying for officers to crisscross. And that's what I don't care for. I'm looking not for today, I'm looking long term. I heard Matt said, one day we're going to look back and thank this council for being forward thinking. It's like, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking we have a robust sales tax revenue, and a lot of it created by a safety tax that 1% sold to the public as this is a public safety tax. We have money to actually look at this and look at this seriously. This is not a serious conversation I'm having right here. This is a conversation that is someone who's trying to overthink this moment right now. I'm not thinking of this moment right now. I'm thinking about a moment 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now. That's the moment I'm thinking of. That's why I get so frustrated when I hear this conversation going on, because this has nothing to do with this conversation we should be having. We should be looking at what are we doing to prepare ourselves for the future on a public safety. Yeah, we're the 16th safest city. I get that. That you can have that conversation all day long. Yes, we're doing a great job. I think our sheriff's department does an amazing job. I have no problem with the sheriff's department, but there will come a day when we decide there is going to be a police department in the city of Temecula, and what did we do about it, or did we paint ourselves into a corner we can't get out of? That's the conversation I want to have today. That's what this item was about. It was about looking at a police station, looking forward, looking how could we actually get our police officers in town. Now, yeah, I understand the policing model. I get that. You know, are we saving money? You know what? Maybe not. Maybe so. We might be, I look at how much this French Valley Parkway was originally quoted at costing, and it's like 50, 75% more right now. Well, exactly what will happen with a police station. If we don't start looking at a police station now and start thinking, okay, do we want to build it now? Or do we want to build it 10 years from now, 15 years from now? When we've paid ourselves in a corner, we might not have the robust sales tax revenue that we have today. And so now that future city council is going, crap, why didn't previous city councils think this day might come? That's my issue. That's what I'm thinking. I'm not thinking of all this other stuff. I get it. I'm not arguing with you on any of these points. I get it, but I think if we don't look forward, they're going to be looking back at us and going, what'd you guys do? Why didn't you guys think about this? That's my opinion. That's what brought this issue forward. Had nothing to do with, the policing model today. I get it. We're doing a great job. 16th safest. Get it. But unless you're moving forward and trying and keeping ahead of that ball, eventually you're going to get behind the ball. And that's what I think we need to start looking at. If you guys don't agree, that's fine. I just want to have this conversation today. And if you guys want to say no, great. I'm totally good. But I think it's a mistake. So,
Well, Sue, I don't mean to upset you, but my point is that if the police officers are not at the station and it's admin,
but they check in at the station.
do we need that much space?
They check in at the station. They're actually there. That's where they go. That's where they get released to go to their zones and stuff. It takes a lot of time to commute from French Valley. Try it one day. And so that's what I'm talking about. It has nothing to do with the admin portion of it. The admin portion, I get. You can do that anywhere. You can do that in your car. You can do that. But for them to commute in and out of French Valley versus in and out from the old city hall, huge difference.
Now, remember, we still have zones out there.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm going to see if our other colleagues have anything else they would like to speak to. Mr. Schwank.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for this opportunity. Thank you for the report, appreciate it. And then Captain Hall, thank you for some of your comments as well. Generally when these items come forward, I try to start in a place of yes, especially when it's driven by a fellow council member. But I'm trying to think about some of the implications of what we're thinking about here. So, to the report, none of the sites genuinely spoke to me as a viable spot. Personally, maybe it makes a little more sense in like an Old Town where you have a civic center quad kind of vibe going on. That's not feasible in our current downtown, so that's kind of off the table. I think about land and how valuable it is, and the value of having businesses on it, or a higher institution on it, or nonprofits, or housing development, right? We're moving to housing on many of some of these more urban industrial areas that we have in the city. So that's important to think about. I think there's value in, and if you look at the map of the Southwest facility, it's a significant footprint. I think there's some value in that type of facility being outside of the city limits. I think you could make a case that it could improve quality of life, especially directly around a police station. So that's something to think about. The Councilmember Stewart, you mentioned thinking ahead and being a visionary, and I genuinely appreciate that. I think we all think that way, although we might not agree on certain things. We might build a facility, and a future council will turn it into something else because the policing models change and things change. So there's nothing's really given, and I understand the intent behind that. I think, personally speaking, if we're having this conversation, it's one that shouldn't be decoupled from having a standalone police force. I think putting it together makes more sense to me. Yeah. Just thinking about if we're going to invest in something, you would probably want to look at the totality of everything versus saying, well, we might need this down the road, so let's build it. We might not, based on the models that we have now and the way things are working. And correct me if I'm wrong, we converted part of the CRC to be a hub, if you will, or a storefront on Rancho Vista, did we not? Yeah, okay. And is that being utilized in a meaningful way, or is it, most everything, especially down here in the storefronts, in the mall, I think are probably busier than maybe that. Is that a fair statement?
That's correct. The deputies don't really use storefronts or substations like they used to, right? With the advent of better technology in the cars, cellular phones, portable printers, things going digital, the need to respond to an office somewhere, that has a printer or a computer or a desktop or a landline is not really needed anymore. So they don't really go to those. And to be honest with you, we don't really encourage it. Like, it is okay to stop by, to use the restroom. It's a safe place to go to the bathroom. Maybe if you have to have a more lengthy phone call that's going to require you to take some significant notes, fine. But your job is really to be out there. Part of what you do is high visibility marked patrol, right? And we expect you to be mobile in the communities we serve. So we don't want you hanging out at a storefront. It's not a place to rest. And our phone calls are recorded, and there's certain technology that goes along with that. And so now you have to transport that maybe into a storefront. They're just not required like they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. When I was out on patrol in the late 90s, if you had to make a phone call, you had to go find a payphone, or you had to go back to the station, or you had to go to a storefront or use one at a gas station, because we didn't even have cells. But as that technology has evolved, they can do everything from the car they need to do. So yes, your storefront here at the City Hall is one of your busier storefronts, and certainly now with Metro being around, right? The mall operates as essentially an independent little police department. The deputies start and end their days there. That's where they're assigned. So that's busy. That operates, I would say that public portal for the public is busier probably than even the storefront down here. Not as busy as the Southwest Station, but very busy. But storefronts are a nice place for them to stop, but we don't even encourage them to spend that much time there. We'd like them out mobile, available for residents to access.
All right, thank you. I think maybe the point I'm trying to make is that things are changing, right? Things evolve. Even City Hall, I remember hearing conversations of, we built City Hall because we were going to fill it with employees, and now there's remote work options, and so things evolve over time. And I think, growing up watching, Ponch and John rolling out of the substation there is like, okay, that doesn't happen here, right? We don't see that visually, but we're getting a good end product. And so I think, being mindful of the future, I want us to be cautious about how we position ourselves for 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road, when we're living in a space now where things are evolving so fast, like technology and things are just changing so rapidly, that I don't know if it's the best interest of the city to have, a standalone police station that we're having contracted forces in, right? So again, I think those are, some of the things that I'm trying to think about: the value of the land, the value of it being outside the city. I don't want to derail this conversation, but talk about annexing in French Valley, right? And then all of a sudden you have a police station in your city limits. Those conversations for councils down the road that may have those conversations. Councilmember Stewart, I appreciate your passion for this. I genuinely do, and like I said, I want to always try to start from a place of, okay, how can we, get to a place where we're all supportive of this. I just don't know that I can get behind building facility without that more robust conversation. And maybe it's not this council, maybe it is another council that has that conversation. You look at the data, and I know we don't want to go down to the road on the data, but you're doing a great job, and I can't imagine a facility in the city would move those numbers significantly in a positive direction. And I could be wrong, but gosh, we're doing a pretty good job. And we didn't even touch on cost. I don't even know how much something like this costs, right? Right. So, I mean, those are considerations. And yeah, we're doing really good. But again, I think this is best served in a larger, broader conversation about the future of public safety in our city.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add to that. Stu, I understand where you're coming from, and I understand your passion, and I appreciate it. But I feel like I would be irresponsible if I went down this road without knowing what our needs are and what our needs, how do we use this station? Does it really need to be this large, et cetera, et cetera? Do we benefit by having it in the city limits? I mean, we've got zones that are clear out all the way up to Butterfield Stage now, all the way up to Murrieta Hot Springs, so we're going that direction too. So I think these are things that, we need to find out, just to say, does this conversation need to go further? And I totally understand where you're coming from. I know you've had a passion for this for a long time, but I feel like it's our responsibility to figure out what this would entail, and do we really need it?
Right. Councilmember Alexander.
It's a really good discussion, so I'd share that, but I do have one question, Sheriff. Looking at one of the things one of the council members brought up is when they're switching over, I think it was Stu, when they're switching over for the beat, just one coming in, one coming out. How many officers do we have per zone or section or beat, whatever you want to call that, here?
Well, it depends. It's driven by call volume, right, and response time. So it kind of fluctuates. What I could do is put a map together that kind of shows you the overlap, but it's not an oncoming deputy does not replace the current deputy. There's hours of overlap time there. So it's not like, a relay where one goes in and tags the other one out. They're both there for a certain amount of time. Then at some point one leaves. But we have 3 shifts that rotate throughout the 24-hour clock. So it isn't some stations run like a 6 to 6 and a 6 to 6. That's problematic on not really the 6 a.m. one,
Yeah.
but the 6 p.m.
Yeah.
And so then they do this early car, late car kind of thing, and it gets a little weird. We run a full cover shift where there's multiple hours in the middle. But not to forget that there's a huge overlap here with special teams, our traffic unit, our SROs. So there's multiple deputies in these multiple zones depending on what they're doing. And then that's enhanced by maybe the special teams deputies that are all out there as well. So I will put together a little analysis of a map so you can kind of see generally how many people are in each area at what time of the day. And I'll send it to you in the next couple of days.
Okay, I think that'd be helpful, I think, for all of us, just to be able to get it, to see that. So thank you very much for that one. And then the other thing, I know when we first talked about initiating this, when Stu brought it up, one of the things that I really was supportive is, and I called it an insurance policy. I think you and I, Stu, can both agree on that, you know, looking to the future, I would like to be able to stay with the Sheriff's Department. There's no reason where I see right now that changing. I don't know what's going to happen in 20 years. I don't know what that's going to look like for a different city council if they're there. But my biggest question for City Hall, because you brought that up, and I think I applaud you because that's a great spot. I really think if there's anywhere that would be it. I just wanted to know and ensure that if that's something we want to look at, can we have the ability to expand, whether up, out, and things like that. And the best part is we own it. So it's not going anywhere. So I don't know if right now I can have 100% saying let's move forward, but I support you on this, and I'm not willing to let it go yet. I just want us to be able to see more of it and what that could look like, because I think you're definitely right. This could definitely be something that we could utilize in the future. I just think we need more information as to what that would look like, but I'm still kind of working with you on this and seeing what this looks like. So that's where I sit.
Well, I just want to say one more thing. And that's what kind of predicated this whole thought in my brain was the last city council, there was a discussion of giving the old city hall in perpetuity to a college. And that was like, wait, that is perhaps could be the only spot that we could build our own police facility within our city limits that is close to all our major hotspots, the mall, the auto mall, Old Town, you know, all the things that we have probably the most amount of issues at, and it's literally across 3 bridges from all of that. And so that's why it was like, as soon as we had that discussion, I was like in my brain going, no! And so that was the thing that brought me to that point where this year, that's why I wanted to have this discussion, because, you know, if all we do is protect that piece of property, that down the road, we have that in our back pocket for, again, that city council who comes behind us. And, you know, we've done something with it now that we don't have access to it. And you know, the idea of French Valley getting annexed, I get that. I understand that logic because it is in our sphere of influence. But at the same token, it's about as far away from everything that we really need to protect in Temecula. It's still as far away, even if it's part of our city at that point, it's still that far away from the mall. It's still that far away from Old Town. And not that if something happens, they're all going to come flooding like a bunch of bees. You know, that's not what I'm talking about. But just to be able to have access to that piece of property, if we decide one day, long term, we're going to build our own police station and have our own police department. And I agree with Zach. You know, I don't necessarily want to get ahead of the idea of that. You know, I do think we need to be talking about both things at the same time. And I do think technology may change, you know, as far as how many police officers do we need. You know, it might get to a point where, you know, 1% may not be what the standard, it might be 0.5%. And, you know, we might be able to do with half as many because we have so much technology out there that we just have a guy sitting and looking at a screen going, okay, that guy just did that, we can figure, you know.
Like that now.
Right, it is with flock system. And so, but again, for me, I just feel like we need to protect the future of future city councils and the city to be able to make that move if we have to do it. That's it. That's my burden, passion, whatever you want to call it, on this situation. And again, it was predicated on the conversation where we were thinking about giving that property away, and it was like I was just having such panic attacks over that. So.
And, you know, I'll add to that, I mean, MSJC is even considering, you know, working with Cal State San Marcos, so even that's in flux. The good news is we own the building. Right. Own the building.
So let me chime in here. I think one of the key features of any facility in this or any other city is its impermanence, right? So today's city council has decided to use that facility for, you know, TVE2 and you know, other uses, and temporarily it was being used by MSJC, you know, there were all those things. The conversation for dedicating that property to higher education was not our conversation, that was their conversation, right? And so it was interesting, but that never really got any traction because we're not in the business of just divesting our property because we know how valuable that is. But anything that we do today may not be that thing that we want 50 years from now or 100 years from now, right? And so I think the impermanence piece is big. Now, we started this conversation about a year ago or a little over a year ago now, and I said to you the same thing I would say today, is that if I saw through any of the studies that were provided or any of the conversations I've had with the sheriff's department or city manager's office, that there is a measurable and meaningful impact to public safety by creating our own facility within this city, then I would absolutely 100% be behind that.
So would I.
And that's, I think, where this thing emerged from, in my mind anyway, right? But in the number of times I've been out with the Riverside sheriffs and you know, getting to ride along in that vehicle and seeing what happens when you have those shift changes and when you move from French Valley into the city, and the number of calls and stops that we had along the way, and the interaction and that, you know, sweep that occurs on a regular basis through the city, I have to say, I think there's an advantage to the current model that we have. And, you know, and if you think of, you know, let's just think of the city as a circle. If the center of the city housed the police station, and if every officer had to go out to a zone from the center of that circle, they're all traveling a particular distance. In that perfect circle, they're all traveling the same distance, let's say. If you take that location and put it at the edge of that circle, they're all still traveling through that circle to reach their point. Now, there may be some additional travel that's going on, but significant, I wouldn't say that it is, right? So because some of those stations are going to be right next to, you know, and especially now with the build out in Aurora and you know, north part of Temecula and so forth, the farthest distance, and I got to do that with you know, one of our deputies, is drive all the way and do patrol on the very south end of town, right? And see what that transition looked like. And it, you know, fortunately you guys aren't doing your shift changes, you know, during the densest part of our traffic days. Generally, at least that's how I had experienced. So it wasn't, you know, an inordinate burden to, you know, move through the city. And then, quite frankly, if there were a priority one call that came across, well then, you know, you've got those lights and stuff on the top of your cars, so that'll help you move through the city, you know, relatively efficiently, right? So I don't see that as being part of the conversation, frankly, right? So then the question comes down to, you know, is the city in a position where we want to have our own police station located inside our boundaries, and does Old City Hall make the most sense, right? I mean, that's kind of how I'm saying this. Now, whether we're talking about homelessness, crime, violent crime rates, our prosecutions, our enforcement of various ordinances and codes, our sheriff's department has been doing an outstanding job, and we keep seeing that, crime is going down. And so I don't have a concern about the model, and it's worked well for over 30 years, and I see it continuing to work well. So, and the only other key feature from my perspective that would force me to say, want to cut the contract with the sheriff's department, quite frankly, is if I ever felt as though this sheriff's department was not the Temecula Police Department. Now, I know internally we can, there's all dialogue of what that actually means and using those terms, but I see the sheriff's department as Temecula Police Department.
Yes.
Right? I see our local control being paramount in the eyes of those that provide that contract. So when we say we need help with homeless, we need help with a metro team, we need help with, other ordinances and things, code that we're putting into place, they've been, exactly as responsive as I think we would have expected if we had our own police department. And I would argue even more so because as our own police department, and you can look to these other cities, and I know everybody loves their own police department, they love their own models, so I don't want to, denigrate any of those other communities. But I will say, just like with our contract with CAL FIRE, having a contract with the sheriff's department comes with additional resources and tools, training, and infrastructure and support that we wouldn't have if we were our own police department.
And no liability.
Right? And I mean, and that's really, God love Riverside County and the Sheriff's Department because you also carry the entire burden of liability.
Yes.
And for me, fiscally and otherwise, I think conservatively speaking, that is an incredibly important feature for me.
And pensions.
So, that too. But then the other thing, and labor negotiations and all the other fun stuff that goes along with it, right? We don't have to participate in any of that. And right now, I'm perfectly happy. And I know our Isaac, you're nodding in agreement as human resources. It's nice not to have all of those additional components, right? But absent that, this relationship, Captain Hall, you're our police chief as far as I'm concerned. I know we changed, titles and things over the years, and that's fine. But that's how we see it. These are our lieutenants, these are our officers. And if there was a moment where I ever felt like that wasn't the case, then yeah, I would absolutely be having this conversation about severing that contract. And you participate in the executive team. You're part of the city, you're part of the culture. And so I think that's important to recognize. I'll also mention one thing which gets lost in this conversation. Maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but our own city manager actually did his master's thesis and research on exactly this topic. I look to that kind of data, that kind of analysis, that sort of information to say, what guides, so I look to his expertise as well in this conversation, and I know he's, being quiet this evening, but we've had plenty of very deep, very thoughtful conversations on this, and, his own recommendations align with, not going toward this other model. So all that said, look, whether we start building a freeway today or whether we start building a police station today or 20 years from now, the price of bread is the price of bread, right? And the price of construction is always going to go up, whether we do it now or later. But we do have the land today. Now, I don't know for certain, but I would guess if we were really to construct a 35 to 40,000 square foot fully operational police station in the city of Temecula, we're talking about a substantial cost. And my guess is we would have to push down that other building and just start over, right?
Yep.
And I don't think we're in a position financially or otherwise to even get close to contemplating that right now. But we do have the building and we do have the land. So one thing that I think maybe we can do to help alleviate some of the concern is maybe we just come back and craft some sort of council policy that says for that specific parcel, if any decisions are made from now till 2080, let's just pick a year, go out there, think long term, and say if any decisions are being made, the first considerations shall be for public safety. You know, and I could get behind that 100% because, you know, I've always said, if we can't get that right, we have no business doing anything else. So let's see if maybe what comes out of tonight is just some sort of direction where the council creates a policy, and Stu, you and I sit on this subcommittee, so let's just, you know, sharpen our pencils, sit down with Peter and Aaron and Kevin and you know, Captain Hall and others, and just say, what does the protection of that property for the sake of public safety look like as far as a council policy, so that at least when we're no longer sitting here, if somebody ever, you know, comes forward and says, I know, we need to, you know, change that over into a recording studio, you know, they take the pause, and that city manager at that time says, well, no, hang on, you have council policy from 2022 that says you need to consider this first.
And they can still change
You know,
it,
and
but it shows our
They
intent.
can still change it, right? And like
it
you
shows our
said, even
intent.
if we built that station, we could still change its use.
Yeah.
But at least it memorializes the conversation we're having today,
Yeah.
provides some level of protection, as much protection as we can as this council today in our letter to a future council. And then, you know, and then go from there. You know, and I think that at least gets us partway to your concern, and at least protects, you know, a valuable asset for the city.
Does that give you a comfort level, Stu?
Yeah, it does.
I have one quick question.
Yes.
Because that's exactly what I wrote down on here in agreement with what you're saying. My one quick question, again, going back to Captain Hall. First, what other cities do you guys contract in within the French Valley Station? Are there any other cities that you guys work out of through there, or is it just us, or how does that work through there?
No, the only other contracts we provide out of the Southwest Station are to Pechanga,
Okay.
Community Service District of Duluth, and to the school districts.
Now, do we foresee as they grow that your station will eventually the possibility of having difficult of growing out of that area? Is that a possibility, or do we have room to grow there as well?
Like, can we grow
Expand.
within the station?
Yeah, like, do you guys have the room, or let's say as population continues to grow in Duluth and all areas, schools, whatnot, is there that room to grow, or eventually will we need something else, as Stu is talking about, as far as another area to be able to grow into?
No, we can probably grow within the station because we house specialty teams at the Southwest Station that don't necessarily service this area specifically. And as the county grows in population, new sheriff stations come online. And when new sheriff stations come online, we will lose some county staff to that station, right? As they take a certain piece of geography, they will take people from us. So I don't think we'll ever necessarily outgrow the building we're in. Not in the time that I will be here, for sure.
We might need to expand. Eventually, there could be expansion.
Yeah, I guess it depends. Again, it goes to this conversation of the industry is evolving. We need less staff to do some of the administrative functions we needed, to do 10, 15, 20 years ago, right? As we digitize things, as technology improves, it does reduce the human manpower that's needed, which reduces space. It is hard to tell, but I know that we could take probably 10 or 15 humans assigned to the station now and move them somewhere else because their primary duty area isn't necessarily just in the Southwest area. We just house them now.
Okay.
But let's say they built a larger station in the Anza or Awanga area that would take staff from our station to that station. Or Duluth, if Duluth built a station near Duluth to service, say, Duluth and La Cresta,
Right.
that would take deputy sheriffs from our building and put them over there.
Okay.
So I mean, it is possible in the future we would outgrow the building, but I think that's a long way off.
Okay, I just want to have everything and have every, T crossed and every dot I'd, or dotted at this point in time. I know it's late, but I am in agreeance with Matt. I think that's the best way to go.
Yeah.
Again, that's literally, that was my next point that I wanted to bring up is let's secure that. I love the 2080. I think that's a great year. 80s were great, so bring them back. But yeah, I think that's a great possibility. And then Stu, you have the security in your heart to be able to say, hey, we've got something, we secured something, but it's not putting our finances at a risk, and it's also just doing what we need to do if that insurance policy is there. So I think it's a great asset and a great way to go.
And one more point of clarification. The county has the obligation to provide services to Temecula. So that station, Southwest Station, would be a priority for the county to provide for Temecula, correct?
Yes, and the
Okay.
surrounding county area.
Okay, so, I mean, it's not like we're gonna be pushed out of that building and have no place to go, right, until we can prepare something else?
No, there's no plans to close down
Okay.
Southwest Station.
Okay.
Mr. Schwank?
Yeah, thanks. One last thing to add, and it's really following up on your comments, Mr. Mayor. We have a visioning workshop coming up that we're talking about empty lots, and I think this falls in line with that. This conversation sort of falls in line with that. So we'll have an opportunity to sort of craft some council policy going forward, but there's no guarantee that a future council doesn't go.
Correct. Correct.
You know, so, you know, it's just something to think about. Things change so rapidly.
But just like Matt said, at least we memorialize, we had this conversation to protect that, and I'm good with that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And even in old age, we will be sitting in that chair over on that side saying, hey, you needed to pay
You'll be
attention to us,
texting
you know,
them.
and we'll be swinging the gavels that we were given when
Whippersnappers?
we retired, and yes,
Whippersnappers.
right. So happy to do that.
That's it.
All right. All right, can we, do we need to formalize that with a motion, or are we good?
I think we should formalize that motion.
All right. Well, you know, I'll go ahead, or Stu, if you want to, I can craft the motion.
Actually, you did it great.
All right, just roll back the film to 14 minutes ago. Just, you know, look, let's pass a motion to create some mechanism, be it resolution or council policy, that memorializes our desire to protect the property related to and around Old City Hall for priority discussion related to public safety before any other use is contemplated, out to 2080.
I'm good with that.
Just put the 2080 in there, Randy. Come on. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I'm good.
There we go. All right, I have a motion and a second.
Motion.
All right.
I already did.
All right.
That's already.
Stu motion.
Go ahead and-
second. Or Matt second.
Yeah, whatever.
I made the
We've got a
motion.
motion and a second.
So the
Yeah.
motion was by,
By Matt.
This guy.
Second
No,
by me.
well, I thought it was by me. I thought you crafted it. I said I moved and Sue said second.
Whatever we
fun.
want.
Let's just go home.
Just,
Yeah.
we're
Just
good.
Pick anybody.
Need a-
We're all good
Yeah,
with
just
it.
pick a name.
All right.
Are we done? Do we need a motion to extend?
Did I go? I hit it.
Is that it?
Okay, and that passes 5-0. Thank you all for a very,
Okay, that's
a good conversation, and I think a place where we can land comfortably. To our consultants, thank you so much for bearing with us this evening. Safe travels. All right, moving on, we have items for future city council agendas. Anyone? Okay, I have one. I would like us to put on our next council agenda for discussion the development of the Performing Arts Center and Capital Campaign Project that works within our community and prioritizes, you know, a private fundraising initiative for a performing arts center for the city of Temecula. And we'll provide more information on that in the future if you let me spend a few minutes talking about that.
okay.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. City managers report.
Nothing more tonight, Mr. Mayor.
And our city attorney.
No report tonight.
All right. Well, we will go ahead and adjourn to our council meeting of March 22nd with the recognition that Mr. Schwenk provided us earlier related to Ukraine. Thank you all.